This is Lovely Peaches.
As you guys probably know by now, Lovely Peaches is an influencer on the internet.
Of course, she's had to change her name a couple of times after being suspended.
From public meltdowns to insane controversy.
Screaming at people in public, I guess, which is still a horrible thing to do.
A lot of people try to bully me, but I don't care because everybody is different.
I see millions of people enabling this person through social media.
She had a cult following of supporters.
Hey guys, I'm here with Peaches.
Burning and itching, burning and itching.
So it's funny because it's not, I don't know.
But all of this was actually quite tame in comparison.
Just generally unspeakable acts that put in danger children and animals.
Like, why add a dog to this?
I feel like I'm throwing out the window.
Why would you make that up?
The flowers.
Inappropriate behavior around minors.
She was a fan of me, right? And then she came to my house out of nowhere.
Next time I go to her house, I'm going with a bat.
I mean, she went after the literal second largest creator on TikTok.
Charlie D'Amelio, I want to see you.
All the mess with her daughter and what she claimed to do to her.
I used to pinch her skin just to make her cry and bite her skin and pinch it.
FBI's ensuring that she will no longer be able to hurt her daughter Cora.
Mike would tell me how I should treat my child. You know why? Because she's mine.
You know where's gonna be your new home? In jail.
Have you been diagnosed with anything?
And I just don't get it.
Due to stuff like that I've been through, it's very hard for me to have a conversation with people and look them in their eyes. It's very hard for me to communicate with other people.
Goodbye.
If you're like me and billions of others, by now you most likely have heard of a peculiar little app known as TikTok. From cute animal clips that can bring a smile to those experiencing the worst of days, useful cooking tutorials that can get you through a pinch on a budget in today's economic climate.
$7 for 10 slices of cheese?
Clever comedy sketches that highlight something so nichely relatable to each of our own lives. Makeup tutorials, life vlogs, mom and pop businesses, so on and so forth. TikTok is home to so many unique forms of content, carefully curated to each user's specific interest. However, as I'm sure you either know or are expecting given that you've clicked on this video, TikTok is a far cry from an innocent app. And lurking within is a dark side of the platform, ridden with horrific controversies and dramas that has plagued the website ever since its conception. Hidden within plain sight among the search feeds of millions, users have uncovered a slew of nightmarish creators, ranging from has-been hotel enthusiasts openly fond of Japan's age of consent laws, highly concerning father-daughter duos, animal lovers, stalker furries, attention-hungry performative activists who will lie on the names of anyone, even going so far as to painting innocent people as predators to promote their unyielding hero complex, Minecraft cosplayers with a fear of the number 18, and many more volatile monsters that would drag the summary on for quite some time. TikTok is home to some of the worst creatures to have ever surfaced online. And with our character of interest today, a mother only by technicality, who blurs the lines of intentional rage bait with what can only really be described as inconceivable depravity, you and I will be adding yet another entry into the ever-growing list of reprehensible individuals that can be found on the platform. So if you would allow me the honor, or I suppose more accurately dishonor, of introducing to you Brittany Johnson, aka Lovely Peaches. 25-year-old Brittany Johnson, Louisiana native currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia, is a once avid TikTok creator, musician, and, tragically, mother of one whose initial debut to the internet dates as far back as 2016 through 2017. Operating under what would grow to be one of TikTok's most infamous accounts with over 1.1 million followers at its height, Peaches would emerge across social media under the handle HiI'mLovelypeaches100. However, it should be noted that the first actual official online sighting of this lovely individual, most certainly intended, cannot definitively be traced back to one concrete source. As is the case with many creators, the spark of their online debut was more akin to that of a brief flicker, with users noticing their presence only after their established virality. Ambitiously diving headfirst into the online world with what appeared to be a clear intended desire to bring as much attention to their existence as humanly possible, there wasn't really such a concept as humble beginnings with our beloved Peaches, as her drive for recognition was fueled by a genuine infatuation with chaos. Conducting herself in her earliest content in what would grow to become her on-brand, eerily uncanny manner, Peaches quickly became known for their baffling degree of non-stop out-of-pocket claims that she would vent out into the world on her page day after day, virtually speaking into the void the ramblings of a madwoman. Examples of such claims, if you were curious, would be when they would gleefully confess to having subjected themselves to SA when they were just a minor for money, and how that made them feel simply fulfilled with life for some reason. Their expressed enjoyment regarding the niche art form of painting her own face with their monthly internal sheddings of the human body. Yummers. How they dined on uniquely peculiar delicacies such as both dog and human feces, washing down such a repurposed meal with a refreshing glass of toilet water, reaching their rather interesting belief that showers are a social conspiracy designed to make people feel as if they are fitting in.
Not once have I ever heard an actual good, reasonable reason for people to shower. People shower because it's a trend.
Okay. All the while vehemently defending their viewpoints as being within the realm of complete normalcy. For many users, scattered across countless threads and small forums, and back-alley internet gossip boards alike, Peaches, to say the least, was yet another one of the many questionable online spectacles, who called the online world home, diseased with an unrelenting hunger for both attention and validation. Soon, however, a much more sinister and deeply unhinged reality would begin to unfold before countless divided online communities, which either despised Peaches with a passion, or absolutely adored her and the boisterous "Yes, Queen" energy she carried herself with across multiple social media platforms. A sort of behavior, if you will, that revealed to the world that Peaches was truly a 1 out of a million case study regarding the sheer unfathomable lengths one will go to as a desperate means to achieve internet virality at any cost. Because for someone like Peaches, seemingly being hated by millions was worth being loved by no one.
You know, as a female, I used to be really self-conscious about my smell, but honestly, being a female, we can't help but to smell like fish.
Fair warning for the proceeding of the mother of all run-on sentences, my friend. From the aforementioned instances of rage bait involving the consumption of their own ways, frequently removing their clothes in public, more times than not being the result of them aggressively twerking in fast food establishments, only to go home and finish it all off with a nice hearty meal of, well, let's just say one of my researchers left me a note informing me that they were charging me extra due to what they witnessed. I do apologize, Louisa. Legitimately claiming she housed numerous bugs inside of, well, you have a colorful imagination, I'm sure. Open admissions regarding her hardly secretive hatred for her own daughter Cora, expressing her irritation with how she feels it is unfair how she has to spend her time watching over, quote, that thing all day, when she should instead be out partying and living her best life.
And I was stuck with that thing, and she kept crying, making noises or whatever, and I'm on Facebook or whatever, just scrolling on Facebook, and I see that my friends, they have a party going on. So I text them or whatever, I said, what, you ain't gonna invite me? Like, I wanna come, I wanna go out. So they're like, oh, ain't you with the baby? I'm like, okay, and what about it? And people listen to that and think I'm wrong, but I shouldn't have to sit down watching another human being all day. That's just being real.
Her unverified and honestly just completely putrid statements that she is physically and committed SA against Cora, which eventually culminated in her attempting to try and sell Cora on both TikTok and Instagram live streams to the highest bidder, with her plan being, if this failed, to just outright, for lack of better terms, remove her. Animal cruelty carried out against her small terrier mix, Max, that she adopted solely as a means to harm him openly for content through methods I can't discuss this early into our analysis, while laughing and bragging about how she deprives him of both food and water for days on end, as is in part described through her own admission in official police body cam footage released, taken during an arrest that occurred in January of 2021, after during a live stream viewers reported her deplorable behaviors to authorities, relentlessly harassing multiple popular influencers that were minors at the time, such as two creators by the name Sky Jackson and Malu Trevejo, exposing them as well as their audiences directly to not safe for work content through her own intended doing, with this depravity spiraling down into a rabbit hole of genuine insanity, where she would go as far as to openly claiming to her viewers to have legitimately hired someone to track down, kidnap, and commit unspeakable acts against renowned TikTok star Charli D'Amelio when Charli was only 15, an act that allegedly finally resulted in Peach's original TikTok account finally being terminated in early 2021. But much like a hydra, when you take one out, three more will simply appear in the other's absence, hell-bent on staying relevant by any means necessary. The story of Lovely Peaches is one of incomprehensible grotesque harassment and abuse, with absolutely no regard or empathy for others, stemming seemingly from their unresolved grief, brought upon upon by the loss of her mother with whom she dearly cherished, that has resulted in a decade-long crusade of desperately heinous actions committed as a disillusioned means to fill the void of isolation and lack of attention present in her own life, all the while somehow to this very day, still managing to maintain a loving audience of fans who adore her every action. The internet is truly a filthy, vile place, isn't it, my friend? Now, before you and I dive right into this rather deplorable and appetite-ruining case study of yet another internet creep who has somehow managed, despite their infamy, to retain a loving audience and relevancy over the last decade or so, if you'd allow me to briefly introduce myself, I would be forever grateful. Hi, HiI'mWonder, your one-stop shop for calm deep dives on some of the internet's most unsavory individuals around. I upload a new deep dive on a bi-weekly to tri-weekly basis, which recently has been just like such a massive lie. So if you find you enjoy what you see here today, in terms of production itself, feel free to leave me a like and subscribe with the bell notification on, so you never miss out on a new deep dive in the future, as well as yours truly. Also feel free to let me know in the comments what you did or didn't like about today's video, so I can work on providing a better viewing experience for you, my very attractive friend, in the future. If you're feeling a little bit generous,
like spreading this power of Jesus,
I'd love to meet my personal end-of-year goal of hitting 160,000 followers to this channel family. I genuinely can't even believe I made it this far, you know? So any and all support truly does mean the world to me. I like seeing your faces. Also, it just was really cool and supportive. If you'd like to help support the creation of future deep dives in the future, feel free to consider supporting me over on Patreon, where you can have your name featured at the end of each video, as well as access to my Patreon-only Discord server where we can catch up and say hello, or becoming a channel member where you'll get access to unique badges that show your support. All Patreon members get access to post-upload content where I go over a recap of the day's dive, where you can hear my more biased personal takes, project updates, Senior James, and more. All donations help fund further projects and allow me breathing room to safely take on extra hands. That's between me and my lovely editor Visual, as well as our newest addition Index, who helps me research these videos among a litany of other things. We are a rather small team, and it is my desire to see you more and more often. Because of this channel and the community I have been so blessed to find myself surrounded by here with my time online, it is truly something I am thankful to have every day. If you'd also like to help further boost my ego, if I missed anything in today's story, or you'd simply like to just say hey, feel free to follow me over on my Instagram, as it is the easiest place to reach me. I post some really cool and epic stuff over there that will truly, as they say, knock your socks off.
Hey, queens.
I recently hit over 3,000 followers over there, so once I'm done moving states here in a few weeks, I'll be committing to my long overdue promise of my Hatsune Miku cosplay photoshoot. Now won't that just be a jolly good show on the ye old opticals? Also, big shout out to the editors who helped alongside Visual. Much love to JP, Okra, and Cherry. Thank you. So handsome. Without further ado, once more, my name is Wonder, and I want to express that it is genuinely phenomenal to have you here today. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you who is a returning viewer for all the love and support you bring to this channel. I really do appreciate you all dearly. So with that said, go grab yourself a snack and a beverage of the liquid variety, and let's you and I go ahead and dive right into the bewildering story of Lovely Peaches, TikTok's original creep.
As you can see, I'm 1 month away from my annual bath. I take a bath like every year, and in January, I would say the 9th, around an estimate. I'm taken because I have like 11 boyfriends and they're all madly in love with me. I love James Charles so much. Like, she's literally a queen. Even somebody like me, one thing about me, I feel like baths are kind of like something that people just do to please other people, to make other people feel, they feel like it makes them fit in. It's hard being a female, like we just be walking and start itching really, really bad. Like, oh my God, I'm itching so bad.
Before you and I can begin to explore the numerous diabolical details that weave their way through this absolutely delightful narrative, you and I will first need to ask ourselves two very pivotal questions. Who exactly is Lovely Peaches, and well, where did she even come from? Important questions to ask, no doubt, but ones that will require us to willingly tarnish our appetites for the foreseeable future nevertheless.
Well, don't worry, princess. Very soon, we'll be able to get to know each other. Anyway.
So with that said, let's you and I go back to the very beginning. Birth. Conception, the Big Bang. Something odd million years ago, there was a big rock that hit the ground. Things developed. The Anomalocaris was there. The Anomalocaris was no longer there. And then, you know, some other stuff happened, and bada bing, bada boom, Peaches was born. But it's a little more nuanced than that. Brittany Johnson, aka, as we've established, Lovely Peaches, was spawned into this world on January 4th, 2001, into a presumably on the surface, unassuming religious household under the care of her two parents, Michael and Cora Johnson. I make note of their home situation being potentially fairly religious due to the fact that Peaches' father, based upon what scarce degree of information can be found online in reference to her youth, was allegedly a church pastor during her early childhood. Brittany's earliest formative years admittedly are a bit of a mystery, even to a point where websites like Kiwi Farms, known for their thorough methods of archiving this kind of information and drive for documentation of the online footprints of those like Peaches, has been more or less unable to bear any fruit regarding such details. However, between what my researchers, and what one Kiwi Farms user who had posted a rather in-depth anecdotal overview on Peaches' history back in March of 2020, were able to piece together, while yes, foggy and of course not definitive in accuracy, Peaches' youth, by all means, appeared to be a rather depressing ordeal consisting of both truancy and neglect, with Peaches seemingly taking upon, based on their own stated recollections, the role of being the black sheep, so to speak, of their family, if you will. On October 1st, 2019, a channel under the name of Lisa Bailey would re-upload an Instagram story of Peaches to their account. The breadcrumbs left by this video are some of the very few we actually have when it comes to the mysteries of Miss Johnson's early life. Here she expresses to viewers how growing up she was often belittled and even outright ridiculed by those within her family on a consistent basis. She laments the challenge this has created for her as an adult, where due to her upbringing, it can be rather hard for her to talk and formulate relationships with other people in her life. Yet she still, despite this affliction, tries to make a valid effort to maintain a consistent level of communication with their community of fans.
Honestly, I do want to say, no matter what kind of mood I'm in or what I'm going through, God is my witness, I would never be rude to a fan. I would never deny a fan a picture.
Hey guys, I'm here with Peaches.
OMG, we met her too.
Peaches, can you say hi to Olivia Mac and Kalantra?
Hi, Olivia Mac and Carter, I love you. I do want people to know that due to stuff like that I've been through, it's very hard for me to like have a conversation with people and like look them in their eyes. It's like very hard for me to communicate with other people because I was always belittled. So that's why sometimes I'm just not that talkative. I don't want it to come off as being rude or anything. When I was younger, nobody ever really wanted to be bothered with me, and that's all I wanted to say, is that I'm not really used to communicating with other humans and looking at them in their eyes and stuff.
Further into this upload, Peaches then relays that she felt as if in her youth nobody ever really wanted to be around her, resulting in a described experience that she likens to being heavily neglected without outright saying that, which this information would, I feel, track fairly consistently with her long-term future goals and behaviors. And so despite how little of an insight we are given pertaining to the exact scope and detail as to what some of these instances of neglect actually look like, it does at least give us something of a baseline reasoning as to how Peaches would later in life grow to become an attention-seeking power vacuum. An unfortunate and arguably rather traumatic aspect to their upbringing that acted in part as the catalyst for her insatiable desire to be noticed by others at any extent. When it comes to Peaches' early to late teen years, there are some unconfirmed accounts floating around online as to what this period of her time was actually like. So proceeding under the notion that yes, this isn't 100% confirmed. According to a lengthy entry made to Kiwi Farms, as mentioned prior, Brittany's life from the ages of 13 to 16 could be best summarized as the following. Allegedly, when Peaches was around 13, she would abruptly begin a string of varyingly successful attempts to run away from home for extended periods of time for reasons unknown. Tragically, from what Peaches has openly admitted online with statements often made in these bizarrely joyous tones, that at this incredibly young age, she would begin to start providing services on the streets to various men for financial benefit, as well as citing her contentment with the company and attention that said disgusting men would provide. Genuinely, while it will grow to become incredibly obvious that I have my own strong biases towards Peaches, I do want to state that it is legitimately sickening how they felt for one reason or another some sort of compulsion to do this, and how there was grown men willing to take advantage of what was clearly, I would infer to be, a rather mentally unstable minor who was desperately in need of some form of assistance that her family was perhaps not providing, either out of lack of care or genuine inability to actually help such a situation. Make no mistake, there is simply no excuse for any of the rancid actions later committed by Peaches in the following years. But when you do hear of such circumstances, it does lead one to theorize that if she was given the help that she needed, could a different outcome have occurred for someone like Peaches, or are they truly just an individual who was just too far gone from the start? Could there have been a different outcome for someone like Peaches, instead of being used by the world as some source of twisted amusement, emboldened by the attention they claim to have never received in their youth, despite the severe toxicity that said attention was comprised of? An interesting thought experiment, I suppose, that I'd actually be really curious to hear your own version of an interpretation on down below, if you desire to converse a little bit. Their father, Michael, at the time appearing to still have hope and love in his heart for his troubled daughter, would frequently make efforts to try and bring Peaches home when she would once again inevitably decide to run away. Yet, by the time Brittany was around the ages of 15 or 16, Michael was beginning to feel, allegedly, as if his efforts of rescuing his daughter from herself were being met with only diminishing returns. And so these olive branches of parental care and housing became far and few between. Each runaway attempt, another try, over and over, until it seemed as if their father had entirely abandoned any hope of bringing Peaches home to help her sustain a better life. Truthfully, if this is to be 100% accurate, I am an outsider looking in, and so I don't know every single detail that went down, so I don't want to make a full judgment call of Peaches' father. I'm solely going to say this off of the hypothesis, the hypothetical speculation of conclusions. So while I was not in the circumstances that Peaches' father was facing, and I wasn't there for every attempt at reconciliation, I find the concept of throwing in the towel on your own daughter to be a genuine cop-out and honestly kind of pathetic. If you don't know the solution, you try everything, learn everything, reach out to professionals, or do literally whatever it takes. And, perhaps I don't have a leg to stand on as I'm not a father. But again, I don't really think I need to be a parental figure to have that opinion. But I don't know, perhaps you may think differently. I'd argue that your efforts are not exhausted truly, until your son or daughter has reached an age in which you truly can no longer aid the situation. Turmoil and misery acts as a second home to a lot of people, and there genuinely is sometimes nothing you can actually do to save someone. But when it comes to, say, a teenager, someone who is both defiant and rebellious, wholly unsure of their place in this world, and especially in a scenario as described with Peaches, more times than not, I would argue, these behaviors are often a byproduct of their cries for help due to their own mental anguish. In Peaches' case, there is a strong suggestion that a lot of these actions were driven by both grief and loneliness, and leaving someone like that on the streets, even if they do attempt to run away, will never actually give them a chance to heal from that. And I understand, people will just continue to try to run away from home, but like I said, you don't really exhaust your efforts, I suppose. Not to sound like a cringy PSA message hitting you with a "change the world, my final message, goodbye." But I would argue, maybe some parents can chime in here and give up on your kids, man. With that said though, from the time frame of around June through November of 2018, Peaches' living situation had become extremely tumultuous, which perhaps may be a bit of an understatement in retrospect. Allegedly, Peaches was moving around across various rundown motels, all the while engaging in highly illegal work, under the rule of an allegedly incredibly aggressive handler, who at one point, according to the aforementioned forum post, had even actually kidnapped Peaches, forcing her to remain in Texas before she eventually escaped and made her return to New Orleans. Do note that if my timeline is correct here, these highly disturbing series of events would have taken place when Brittany was still only around 17 years old.
Two Baton Rouge men were arrested after police say they bought a missing 16-year-old girl food and a hotel room in exchange for I was sucking
popsicles.
what they call it, Big Macs. I don't eat Big Macs as much anymore, so that's why I kind of forgot about them. But I was in love with them Big Macs, and I was sucking
money
for Big Macs.
Whenever Peaches wasn't working, they were allegedly destroying the motels in which they were occupying by backing up all of the toilets, as well as putrefying their bed sheets and motel floors with their own human waste, alongside painting the walls of these rooms with other various bodily fluids. How delightful. Tasty. While there are some descriptions contained within the Kiwi Farms post that I feel is best left unspoken for the sake of maintaining a sense of sanity, as there are descriptions of witness instances where Brittany would take blades and insert them into, places, eating waste, which one of these documented occurrences I can personally confirm to you that I have seen myself. This period of time in her life was when the first few spectators of her content would begin to truly emerge, and soon after, begin encouraging Peaches to continue further down this rabbit hole of depravity. Whether that be from users who wanted to see her commit heinous behaviors online for their own entertainment, or out of genuine, wholehearted support for what she was doing, somehow, people were greatly drawn to her. Regardless of where it was originating, whether it was from authentic admiration or sickening self-satisfaction, Peaches had finally acquired the smallest taste of what online attention felt like, the first real positive affirmation she most likely had received in years. And that is, truthfully, all it took for them to become absolutely hooked, fully embracing this untamed side of their character while submitting to the addiction that is online validation. Peaches was finally beginning to understand what it was she needed, or so she believed, to fill that hollow void deep inside her, and so tucked away, hidden throughout the various ransacked motel rooms deep within the feral corners of New Orleans, one of the most tragic, but more so, notorious figures to have ever wreaked havoc across social media, our queen, Lovely Peaches, was born. But there is another story to this element that will actually act as one step forward and two steps back in regards to laying out all possible baseline understandings of how Brittany Johnson's amazing digital crusade of both harassment and relentless abuse had potentially culminated, not entirely, but in part, from the ripe conditions that created this perfect storm of insanity. And that factor would unfortunately be the untimely passing of Peaches' mother, Cora, back in 2014. An event that would essentially, from an outside perspective, deeply fracture Peaches forever as a person. When Peaches was only 13 and a half years old, their mother Coralie Johnson would, as stated, unfortunately pass away from a disease known as multiple sclerosis, which truthfully I personally needed to do a little digging to find out exactly what that was. If you're unaware, according to the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke, which is a part of the US's National Institutes of Health, which I honestly still don't know what that is, but it's there. And I need a little bit of an explanation here because this first part of the description seems a little counterintuitive. I'm not a doctor, so if you could help me out with that, I'd actually be pretty appreciative. MS is currently an incurable, though treatable, autoimmune disorder that causes the immune system to accidentally start attacking healthy cells. It isn't always fatal according to what I was reading from this webpage, but in some cases, such as with Peaches' mother Cora, it sadly can be. From what has been gathered about Peaches' relationship with her mother, it can be easily inferred that despite their prior stated beliefs that they were neglected frequently throughout their youth, Peaches was still incredibly attached to her nevertheless. And while I personally cannot relate to such a loss myself, it goes naturally without saying that losing one's mother, especially during such pivotal formative years, must have been sincerely soul-crushing for Peaches. And while the correlation is indeed speculative, if we recall, according to my best understanding of the timeline of these events, shortly after the devastating loss of their mother, that is when Peaches seemingly began running away from home and seeking out attention in the arms of vile predators. Which, again, this is speculation, but if that is to be the direct cause and effect, then that genuinely is just incredibly tragic. Especially when we consider that if Peaches already felt isolated and as if the world didn't want anything to do with them, then I can easily see how losing the one person who to some extent openly loved you could cause one to develop a fragile mental state. What is also, I suppose not of any direct relevance, but still very heartbreaking to read nonetheless, is when you visit Cora Johnson's online obituary, you can find an entry actually made by Peaches lying dormant on this webpage that was posted on January 30th, 2020, that simply reads, "I miss you, mommy." With this establishment of what I believe to be a highly crucial piece of information that helps us better understand, again, not justify, the preceding nightmare that you and I are about to finally begin dissecting, I feel it is time we circle back to retaining our linear timeline so we can return to maintaining a chronological series of events together the best that we can, by exploring in depth Peaches' first taste test of controversy that will take us forward from 2014 all the way 3 years later to 2017, when she would make their, I suppose you could say, official debut to social media, wasting absolutely no time in pursuing a relentless game of rage bait and gross out content, curated to garner an audience off of one of Peaches' few mastered talents, I suppose you could say, as a creator. Good old-fashioned shock value, baby. Admittedly, Peaches' online existence, as briefly established earlier, was originally restricted to a certain niche corner of the internet, where Peaches had been accumulating a humble audience of mostly casual digital onlookers who would tune in daily to see what was going on with this highly unusual user that seemingly manifested upon their feed one unassuming day out of nowhere. While such content will not be presented on display, as I have no desire to subject you to such material, a lot of this early content of Peaches involved her making highly outlandish claims that would, in most instances, be chalked up to generic desperate rage bait, but with her also blurring the lines of reality and fictitious attention farming, because Peaches was often willing to, how would you say, go the extra mile. The majority of these early instances began with Peaches preaching to the world their peculiar, one might say, belief system surrounding poop, and the social conspiracy designed to force others into falling into a social conformative line, hygiene. Such examples of these beliefs from Peaches include her lack of qualms with consuming excrement. Allegedly, she was fond of eating not only human waste, but switching it up from time to time with dog waste. How exciting. She also found the concept of having a nice little slurp of toilet water every so often to be an acceptable practice that shouldn't be viewed as animalistic and damaging to one's health. Y'all still never gave me a valid reason to what's so wrong with eating shit. Oh lord. People can eat whatever food they want. Don't see why you should judge someone because of the food they like or choose to eat. People can do whatever they want with their bodies. Well, that is true. By all means, I don't think there's any laws surrounding it, but it just begs the question why. But I don't really know if you could say it's food. I guess it's, I don't know. I don't really want to get into the anatomy of that. I'm just going to summarize it up with a big fat no. You don't do this. Also, I'm gonna be 100% with you here. Keep it $1.50. There has been in my entire time online 5 times that I can recall where I have actually gagged from something I am either writing a script on or something I have seen myself online. I can feel myself actually holding back, trying not to retch. But the visual image of someone consuming dirty toilet water in a run-down roadside motel is just causing my stomach to do not so pleasant stomach things. But oh, life is just simply so cruel, isn't it? Oh, it only gets better too. Simply delightful, really. Because one of my dear researchers also listed a hyperlink that appeared to display an image of Peaches smiling wide with literal smeared across her teeth. How amazing! I knew I wouldn't be happy if I clicked on that link, but for science, I guess I was just compelled to know. But again, what was I expecting? Peaches, the people want to know, what does your poop taste like?
So, people just need to be more open to things like eating other foods instead of just judging other people based off of what they eat. So I think it tastes wonderful. It has a very sweet taste to it. It kind of tastes like caramel.
What a god-awful, what are you talking about? Continuing further on their belief system pertaining to the concept of socially acceptable hygiene, Peaches has openly expressed to viewers on live streams when asked that they personally do not partake in such trivial tomfoolery like showering because they feel that there is no actual need to do so, and that the only real reason people shower is to fit in, as she describes, stating how such a routine is entirely optional and is not on par with actual necessities like food and water, equating showering to being merely a waste of money that needlessly increases one's water bill.
Why don't you take showers? Not once have I ever heard an actual good, reasonable reason for people to shower. Showering, people shower because it's a trend. People shower because it's a trend. It's not something that needs to be done. It's not something that it's not like drinking food or water. It's not something that it's not something that we actually need. It's just something that people do. It's a trend. People do it because other people do it. A lot of things people do is because other people do it. To be honest, people like to follow the trend. And I'm speaking facts, even though people are going to laugh. People are going to think I sound dumb. I'm speaking facts because think to yourself. You have to think to yourself, why do I shower? Why do I bath? Why do I do it? What am I getting out of doing this? Am I going to starve if I don't take a bath? Am I going to die if I don't take a bath?
Yes. Wait. Dude, you can get diseases. peaches, man. Like, what do you mean?
It's not a necessity like food and water. Basically, you're just wasting your own water bill for no reason because you want to fit in. And I don't understand it because people don't know if you shower or not anyways. They cannot tell. They cannot tell from Adam or Eve if you take baths or if you shower or not. So why are you doing it just to fit in? And people don't even know if you're really doing it or not. So that's all I gotta say about that.
You know, form your own thoughts there, I suppose. And not to be mean, but I find that to be completely disgusting. I'm pretty sure there's a biological impetus to showering. As I'm sure most of you, I would hope all of you know, we aren't the only animals to do so either, which is where that belief starts to really come apart. Cats, bats, dogs, beaver, birds, you know, bird baths are called that for a reason. Science is shocking, isn't it? Hell, even ants clean one another and groom themselves. If a literal ant can have better hygiene than peaches, then I would argue in my non-professional opinion. Actually, what would even make someone a profession of showering? I've been taking showers since I was a child, so maybe this is my professional opinion. That is just simply bewildering and wrong. But who knows, maybe Peaches is on to something here, and showers were invented by Big Water to sell more water. Yeah, you can never know for certain. Who knows, you know, maybe I'll stop showering myself as well. The virgin shower haver, the Chad crust maxer. Where Brittany truly began to start crawling under the skin of countless users, while raising every red flag imaginable when it came to her safety, was when she would suddenly begin posting to their Instagram selfies of herself with various older men, where she would enthusiastically boast about how she enjoyed being, quote, rented and sold. According to echoes in multiple forums documenting her frequent posting of these occasions, for lack of better terms, on both her Instagram and Snapchat stories, these tales of street work from Peaches would garner thousands of eyes, which is made all the more disturbing when we remember that during these early days of her online career, that Peaches would have still only been 16. Which means that such material being posted across these accounts would have been, yes, incredibly illegal to share and expose viewers to. But I digress. By this point in Peach's career, one could describe her presence as being underground. Miss Johnson was certainly becoming the equivalent of Eminem's character B-Rabbit in the movie 8 Mile. Locally, they were known amongst a crowd of patient zeros before being discovered globally. Except, you know, I suppose it was a little different because people were gathering around to watch Peaches eat literal poop. But you've got a cool little brain. I'm sure you're picking up what I'm putting down. So can you guess which next chapter of Peaches' career was about to take place? Virality. Yeah. How did you know? You're just so smart, it's incredible. Here, let's get you a little smiley face sticker for that one. Yeah. That's all you, cowboy. You earned it. Before Peaches' first real sense of virality was yet to bloom, bringing forth at one point an impressive, if just not outright upsetting, following of over 1.1 million dedicated followers to their TikTok alone. There were still many users who truthfully felt like the vocal minority, who were willing to suggest that the potential mental health crisis unfolding in their feeds was a tad bit more important than, some quick entertainment, and discussed in forum threads amongst each other what various different potentials as to what was causing Peaches to act out in such a grotesquely unsettling manner. Back and forth theories were strewn about on said forums, with the only real, somewhat universally agreed upon opinion, for whatever this was, being that it most likely was stemming from a place of grief due to the passing of Peaches' mother Cora, with many users recognizing the close proximity in which these bizarre behaviors from Peaches started emerging publicly in the months preceding. As these speculations were shared between these handful of users, many users began to question whether or not they should attempt to try and get Peaches some kind of psychological help, as something just didn't really seem right here. And whether you were there for entertainment or there out of genuine concern, such an assumption was becoming far too apparent to really be disagreed upon. However, unfortunately, before such concerns could lead to any real likelihood of intervention, no matter how realistic or not such a plan could have actually been, these voices of reason would quickly be drowned out by an insurmountable amount of adoring fans, as well as eager online trolls alike, gladly willing to enable Peaches' never-ending round-the-clock thirst for attention. Because on June 22nd, 2017, Brittany would release a 43-second song upon which she had worked diligently on, filled with soul behind every motivating lyric, titled Burning and Itchin', where they artistically convey the magical wonders of contracting transmitted diseases.
Burning and itching, burning and itching.
And oh boy, it may not have been instantaneous, but hear me when I say the internet wasn't long to show up in Peach's comment sections across social media, letting her know that, hey kid, one day you're gonna be a star. So while I can't play the actual audio— oh, hello, mister. Oh, you gonna see him back there? Look who came to say hello. He's just like in the little— look at him. You can't even see him. He's like a blob. Look who came to say hello. Hi, mister. That's James. So while I can't actually play you the audio of this nifty tune as it is, yes, copyrighted, I will instead eloquently read to you a select amount of the lyrics, which read as the following. Also, did you know that the clankers can sense that too sometimes? I have said too much, how awful.
Oh wow, wait, look at this. My be burning and itching. It be stanky and fishy. Stanky and fishy. Fishy and stinky. Fishy and stinky. It be stanky and fishy, stinky and fishy, fishy and stinky, stanky and fishy.
How exquisite and wonderful.
Why have you stopped playing that wonderful music?
Burning and itching, burning and itching.
Quickly, and understandably so, with this soundbite making its way throughout unsuspecting users' feeds across TikTok's parent app Musical.ly, SoundCloud, and of course Instagram, it began to attract a much wider audience due to the blatantly crude choice in lyricism that made most people turn their heads just a little bit when they heard it. For the most part, upon many's first impressions of Peaches, they assumed that she was someone who just perhaps was ad-libbing about in their living room, and thought, hey, I might record this for a bit of a laugh, with no real reason to take what she was claiming here seriously. Certainly nobody would unironically think this, right? Which is why it equals haha, was more or less the perception of Peaches' first real 15 seconds of fame. But oh, how terrible of a misconception that was. Now, thinking back on it, I don't want to mislead you here. Perhaps I may have overglorified a bit just how grandiose this level of attention Peaches was receiving for their burnin' and itchin' theatrical musical masterpiece that was released to the wacky World Wide Web. Don't get me wrong, it most certainly did attract quite a few individuals and droves to Peach's page, which then resulted in the start of her beginning to garner a following that suppressed any form of actual real concern for Peach's well-being. Because the internet is just such a fun, magical place solely designed, I guess, for entertainment. At least social media, that is. And if you decide to act out and become a noticeable spectacle, it isn't long before your entire existence becomes watered down to nothing more than a character likened to that of someone from a fantasy novel, instead of an actual real-world human being. And while yes, what Peaches had cooked up here was most certainly meme-worthy, Pokemon Go to the polls, the true source for a second wave of popularity would happen less than 2 years later in 2019, when an artist by the name of Ryaning would release online a remix of Burnin' and Itchin', quickly finding new life once again on TikTok in the form of a widely recognized soundbite.
He burning right now, he burning.
Itching and burning, itching and burning, itching and burning, itching and burning, itching and burning.
Used by millions of users across the platform for some time, causing Peaches to finally become a fairly recognizable figure within the space, developing a following that would eventually grow through various other means to be in excess of 1.1 million followers during its height. There is still another unfortunate character of interest we need to discuss further, but we can establish a true chronological series of events, and that, my friends, would be Peach's daughter Cora, noticeably named after her late mother. I do warn, this is the part of the story where our baseline sympathies towards Peaches, rightfully so in my belief, will cease from here on out. Because what we're about to discuss can be best described in simply 2 words: genuine evil.
Okay, so Cora Miracle, she's my daughter. When I gave birth to Cora Miracle, I automatically knew that she was a piece of shit. She's worthless, she's ugly, her head is huge. Okay, I already knew I hated the bitch, but I never really did anything about it. But when she was a few days old, I remember I used to pinch her skin. I ain't gonna lie. I used to pinch her skin just to make her cry and bite her skin and pinch it. But I never really did nothing too irrational. And she was flirting with my boyfriend at the time. I mean, me and him are still cool or whatever. But she was flirting with my boyfriend at the time. I had walked out, and when I came back, he was literally giving her. So I slapped out that. I'm telling this again for the new people here who don't know the story of why I hate my baby so much.
Before our program resumes, just remember that this video is sponsored by literally nothing. Not a damn thing. When Peaches was only 17 years old, her daughter, Cora Miracle Johnson, would be born on March 1st, 2018, into a single-parent household. I make note of the single-parent aspect because, upon further research, Cora's father's identity is a topic of utmost secrecy to this very day. Peaches, for one reason or another, keeps this information very close to chest, if they even actually know it all. If we were to sit here for a moment and speculate briefly on the subject of Cora's father, it wouldn't be too far-fetched to theorize that the potential motive behind this concealment of identity has something to do with the very real possibility that Peaches' daughter's father, Peaches' daughter's father, there we go, that's a tongue twister, is quite possibly, based on everything we've discussed, I would assume, was one of the many vile predators that seized the opportunity to take advantage of a traumatized runaway minor. But again, you and I have no real way of knowing unless more information about that comes to light, or there's just something I've missed online somewhere. But with that said, upon being bestowed the responsibilities of parenthood, Peaches would grow within just a few mere months to absolutely despise the role of being a mother. In a video archived from one of her live streams dating back to somewhere in 2019, Peaches would vent her frustration to viewers, griping about her problems surrounding about the care of her own daughter, believing the dynamic to be highly unfair and prohibitive to her previously chaotic lifestyle. Cruelly, Peaches would insult Cora by calling her a, quote, whore, regularly dehumanizing her further by not even bothering to call her by name, instead only offhandedly sometimes referring to her as, quote, that thing. Peaches' main issue with motherhood, as it would appear, given that she would relay her woes callously to her audience quite often, was that it dawned on her that, upon becoming a mother, she noticed that she was no longer being invited to her usual parties, stating that she, quote, shouldn't have to sit down and watch a human being all day, describing how she was not the type of person who's just gonna babysit someone.
I'm back. Okay, y'all, let me tell y'all something that pisses me off. So let me tell y'all what happened. And people judge me off the story, but don't let me tell my side. Let me turn this TV off. This get on my nerves, bro. And this is what happened that night. Since nobody want to hear my story. And I hope the lady who tried to press charges on me, whoever she would, the state, whatever. Damn it, my connection that went off. Let me tell my mother. Because I hope the lady who tried to press charges on me, I hope she see this. So let me tell you what really happened that night. I'm going to tell my side of the story. Y'all always want to hear Cora's side. Well, hear my side. Because first of all, that's my child. Nobody can tell me how I should treat my child. You know why? Because she's mine, and I brought her into this world. And I hope she sees this too. You ain't got no right to disrespect me. But like I said, I'm gonna tell my side of the story. My dad, he was going to Home Depot or whatever because he'd been watching her for a while. So he went to Home Depot or whatever. He said he'd be gone for a while. And I was stuck with that thing. And she kept crying, making noises or whatever. And I'm on Facebook or whatever, just scrolling on Facebook. And I see that my friends, they have a party going on. So I texted them or whatever. I said, what, you ain't gonna invite me? Like, I wanna come, I wanna go out. So they're like, oh, ain't you with the baby? I'm like, okay, and what about it? What about it? And people listen to that and think I'm wrong, but I shouldn't have to sit down watching another human being all day. That's just being real. Do you want somebody sitting down watching you all day? You probably do, but I ain't the type of person that's gonna sit down and babysit another human being.
Due to these perceived setbacks in her life, Brittany, I suppose there's some sort of demented eye for an eye rationale due to the loss of her social life, felt that if she had no other choice than being stuck with Cora, which literally is not your only choice, you can put them up for adoption. I know adoption's not like the greatest alternative, but it's better than what we're about to discuss. That one way or another, Peaches was going to get her money's worth out of Cora as punishment for taking away her lovely weekly routine of vandalizing motel rooms and being a public menace who explored through the wonderful art of dance, openly sharing their Meat Canyon animator to unsuspecting NPCs in public just trying to, I don't know man, like have dinner or something with their family in peace without risk of catching airborne pink eye. If that's even a thing. I don't know how pink eye works. I feel like I should probably know that at almost 27 years old. And yet another live stream Peaches hosted back in 2019. An exact date isn't fully known. Peaches would use their platform as a way to express their hatred towards Cora once more, and how they had finally started to come up with a plan to fulfill that twisted idea of justice she had in mind that we previously touched upon. In this live stream, Peaches would disturbingly announce to her leagues of ravenous viewers that she had a current goal of selling Cora to the highest bidder, claiming prospective buyers had already begun to contact her with interest, shamelessly establishing with no hesitation whatsoever how her reasoning behind such an evil act was that she truly wanted to see Cora suffer as much as humanly possible for ruining, as she felt, her entire life. Only mortifying users further, Peaches would casually confess to having allegedly already committed disgusting acts I will not describe against Cora, but I will vaguely relay that Peaches would state she would intentionally grow her fingernails out for certain purposes to inflict the most amount of pain she could think of. Continuing their deplorable rant further, Peaches would venomously assert her belief that Cora is, as she describes, worthless, vowing an oath to make Cora's life a living nightmare until she eventually causes her to leave for good, before bursting out into a joyful musical number, bragging that Cora had already, allegedly, tragically been a victim of SA.
My baby girl. My baby girl.
Truthfully, if you can believe it, I'm actually trying my best to hold back details, but I genuinely cannot even think of how I would even begin to be able to describe while still adhering to TOS. The only way I can think of to elaborate upon, though I am loath to, her own self-alleged actions, is to say that they are each more horrifying than the last. It goes down this just really disgusting series of claims that involves instances of Peaches openly admitting to deriving a certain kind of happiness from physically depriving Cora of oxygen. It's just weird. No, I think weird's kind of an understatement. It's just really, I don't know, like I don't want to sit here and be like, oh my god, I am just so baffled, just so disturbed. Like there's nothing I can really say that would emphasize just how fucking disgusting it is. It's genuine insanity. Like the fact that this person even retains some sort of, audience, it's just beyond me. Like how, like there are people who genuinely recognize what she says about her daughter and are just like, nah, that's my queen. That's my, sound like the Boxy girl. My name is Boxy.
My name is Boxy. Most of you know me as Boxy.
My name is Peaches.
It's, I don't know, man. It's insanity. And that's really the only way you can describe it without getting performative about your anger. Preceding this live stream, even more documented instances of these heinous outbursts from Peaches would continually later find their way online, across various discussion forums archived as highlights from her account. While some of the overall apathy from Peaches fans can be chalked up to the way that the nefarious trolls would enable all the bad behavior, especially if said behavior led to Peaches doing something illegal. Even then, the overall outcry for concern and condemnation was disproportionately small. In August of 2020, and honestly this was far too long of a period of time for there to be an action to begin with, rumors and speculation began to emerge online in Peaches' community, as well as within the many discussion forums that were documenting her every move, that there seemed to be some degree of confirmation that Peaches had actually lost custody of Cora at some point. While personally at this point, I have no ability to verify the full legitimacy of these claims, this rumor first originated on the Instagram pages of two separate, from what I am understanding to be, charity/advocacy groups by the name of Children's Riot and the Salvation Foundation. Personally, I'm unfamiliar with both of these purported groups, and their respective accounts appear to no longer exist currently, unless I'm just like incredibly blind and don't know where to look, but this is the evidence that has been presented to us. Described within these posts from Salvation Foundation and Children's Riot, the claim is that enough concerned citizens of the World Wide Web had allegedly banded together to collect and organize all the mounting evidence of Peaches' outwardly prideful towards Cora, working together to go through the proper channels to then report Peaches en masse to the authorities, with the post from Salvation Nation specifically, citing how even agencies like the FBI had been involved in this alleged revoking of custody at one point, with the caption concluding that Cora would never be able to fall victim to the heinous nature of Peaches' actions ever again. Upon this allegation reaching Peaches' own community and spreading like a miniature contained wildfire, Brittany would quickly respond on her music channel, Lovely Peaches 1008, where she would upload a 2-second video where she could be seen with Cora propped upon her shoulder, which if one was aware of the extent of what Peaches had not even been accused of doing to Cora, but instead what she had gleefully boasted to have personally done herself with the purest of enthusiasm, and they still somehow found her to be worthy of support and admiration, then I will truthfully say that such a specimen of a human is beyond saving mentally. And I really don't care if that sounds harsh either. You just don't support certain things. There is, in my personal opinion, absolutely zero respect to be given to a person who condones and rallies behind this level of depravity unjustly afflicted onto a minor, simply because of the highly immature mentality of,
yes, slay queen, live your life.
This type of mindset irritates me greatly. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. It's the type of people who put, sorry, I couldn't pay my bills today.
I don't know how to adult.
You're 30 years old. It's a mindset and mentality that is just, it's like some stuff you'd see at a high school lunch table. It's just like a hive mind collected by one single brain cell. Despite this alleged damning evidence that Peaches had uploaded as a means to quell the ongoing allegations, calling into question the ethics of her parenting.
How could you ever do such a thing?
Which, mind you, again, this could have easily just been old footage that Britney had on her phone, which would appear to be the most likely scenario here in my opinion. A creator by the name of Repzilla would release a 15-minute coverage of Lovely Peaches on his channel titled Lovely Peaches, Under FBI Investigation, that was uploaded on August 13th, 2020. Only a few weeks after Peaches had shared to the world her alleged burden of proof regarding the custody status of her daughter. The reason I make note of this video is, interestingly enough, contained within the comments of Repzilla's analysis, was an entry left by a user claiming to actually be related to Peaches, who wanted to share what they felt to be important insight regarding the entire rumor that had been circulating online about whether or not Cora was safe, or if she was still living under the constant threat of what Peaches allegedly had, and may have still been doing to her behind closed doors. This user, simply named Betty Lee Johnson, would introduce herself as being Peaches' stepmother. She elaborates in their comment how what Peaches had been yammering on about online was in truth a malicious attempt to garner more attention to her social media pages, and how that her and Peaches' father Michael had actually held custody of Cora for, quote, all this time, which leads me to speculate that perhaps Cora had been taken by Peaches' parents shortly after she was born, as Peaches' lifestyle, as I think it obviously goes without saying, cultivated an environment that was dangerously unfit for a minor to be raised in, which was also by no means, of course, a secret to anyone who knew her in her personal life. But again, this is just my own speculation. It isn't entirely explained, but it appears based upon what this Betty Lee Johnson individual claimed to have taken place prior to Repzilla's coverage. It seemed as if there was at some point an attempt to track down Peaches after they were formally reported to the proper authorities, who had, upon viewing all the provided evidence collected, then issued a warrant out for her arrest. As Betty closes this comment off with what feels more like a warning rather than a direct call for empathy, as she urges anyone reading to spread awareness of this update regarding Cora's safety, but while also prefacing, quote, be aware that Peaches needs help. Now, while we have no direct way to prove whether or not this individual Betty Lee Johnson was in actuality Peaches' real stepmother, nor do we have, to the best of my knowledge, access to any kind of police records that may exist that prove with certainty exactly what occurred with Cora, Peaches, and local police, and allegedly the FBI. What you and I can take notice in is back in 2018 when Cora was first born, there were already unsubstantiated rumors floating around the occasional forum that claimed that Peaches had actually already lost custody roughly 2 years prior to this disturbing controversy, culminating into a full-blown drama, I suppose you could say, online, which, based upon everything I have personally seen, I would argue this to simply, again, in my opinion, not be the case, based on the fact that there is footage of both Peaches and Cora documented online throughout these alleged years, in which she would have allegedly not had custody, yet hardly anything post-2020, if at all, to the best of my knowledge, when Peaches had allegedly behind the scenes officially lost custody of her daughter. Regardless, however, whether one wants to argue, oh, this was for attention or not, I strongly believe that based upon every vicious, horrible, nasty, god-awful thread Peaches venomously threw at her own daughter online for the entertainment of her audience, and how with Britney we genuinely have no way of confirming what is or isn't rage bait. You know, because when someone claims they like taking a wee old sip of their toilet water and they post it online, you know, it starts to kind of blur that line a bit. And what is actually another entry into her countless catalog moments of insanity. I wholeheartedly believe that there should be no chances taken here, and that while some people may find my wording to be harsh, which I don't know how. But Peaches should never be allowed to even be within the same vicinity of Cora ever again. But who knows, maybe I'm just a little bit irrational here, I guess. Not really. No. The thing is I know I'm gonna get people arguing that with me, which is wild. That's genuinely wild. I love the internet. It's a hopeless little platform full of people who are missing, I suppose, like 95% of their cognitive thinking. Now, don't let me mislead you, my friend. All of this controversy involving custody with Cora didn't stop Peaches from living that unique brand of chaos she prefers. When all these attempts to locate our queen were going on, she was on the move just out of reach, always keeping ahead for the time being, while busting it down crazy style in rundown motels, as she was now setting her sights on another shift in her online career. It was high time to, of course, focus on music. Because when you're required to be a parent and you have someone to look after who needs you in their life, start a SoundCloud. It all makes sense. Priorities were shifting, and Miss Lovely's energy was far more suited to clout chasing than raising her own daughter. She was skyrocketing in popularity and garnering widespread recognition everywhere she went for her music, all throughout 2019 and 2020. And this unexpected success was quickly taking her career to new heights, far beyond any realistic comprehension she may have had towards her own content. On June 26, 2019, Peaches would create their official music-based channel, as I mentioned earlier, Lovely Peaches 1008, where she would begin uploading to the world her earliest works with great confidence, I suppose you could say. But more realistically, in my opinion, it was just more so a lack of shame. Such musical releases from Peaches would include her two singles, iOS, a diss track targeted at Android phones and the people who use them, sitting alongside Hate You 'Cause They Ain't You, alongside other emotionally hard-hitting works of lyrical genius from the dog poop-consuming visionary herself. Admittedly, these early works of Peaches, as is the case for, I'd argue, almost all artists making early headway into their careers, would not all gain traction immediately, in comparison to some of her other tracks that would garner her rather serious recognition, with some notable singles of hers reaching upwards in excess of a few million views and streams. These first endeavors were more enjoyed by the if you know crowd. That was, for the moment at least. That gradual rise in popularity would suddenly all change for our dear Peaches, when a producer by the name of Ryaning would, as previously mentioned, release to the world a remix version of Peaches' song Burnin' and Itchin'. The 43-second masterpiece, despite its earlier brief virality, had humbly lain in wait on her channel ever since 2017, yearning for the right ear to hear its true potential. And oh boy, hear it from the mountaintops, people did, my friend. Within just a month or so, this remix would go viral online, amassing over 2 million views on Ryaning's channel alone in its eventual lifetime, followed by countless users on TikTok sharing dance routines, lip syncs, and comedic moments using this highly bizarre, but on the surface, pretty humorous audio of Peaches. Also of note was that only just a few months prior, on March 6, 2019, Peaches' first true independent hit single had also been released on both her Lovely Peaches 1008 channel, as well as her Lovely Peaches Spotify page, titled You Don't Own Me. The track's numbers are honestly highly impressive, as at the time of this recording, this single has garnered a combined 3.4 million plays between both accounts since its debut release. To say the least, between actual musical success and virality, Peaches was slowly beginning to become, in a lot of ways, somewhat immune to cancellation, in the way that only true, genuine internet celebrities seem to be able to manage. For every uno person calling for Britney Johnson to be permanently banned from social media, 3 more adoring fans would raise their voices even louder in unwavering support for their degenerate queen. To them, she was pure entertainment. No matter how twisted their actions may be, they would gleefully feed and enable her behavior in a distorted mirror of parasociality, designed to keep her constantly spiraling further down this rabbit hole of depravity, until the voices of Peaches' critics were nearly drowned out entirely. As the months progressed and Peaches' audience only continued to grow further by the thousands, a few additional release successes would solidify Peaches' new persona online throughout 2020. While disturbingly, the controversy involving her deplorable abuse directed towards her own daughter found itself all but snuffed out in the digital noise of her newfound fame and popularity. Peaches' most widely recognized release during this time, however, that truly helped her achieve global recognition was her single Love Is a Waste of Time, which has amassed an astounding 16.5 million streams on Spotify alone, which would then be followed up by Peaches releasing 2 additional versions of the same track, a sped up version as well as, of course, a slowed reverb version. Man, everything under the sun just just really has a slowed reverb version. During the later half of 2019 and all throughout 2020, to say the least, Peaches was now becoming a highly recognizable and well-established face across both TikTok and Instagram. As her TikTok eventually ballooned to surpass over 1 million followers, Brittany Johnson's presence had grown to become arguably far too noticeable to realistically be ignored by the mainstream internet any longer. The attention she now commanded, along with the sheer amount of money she was beginning to make on a weekly basis, from both fan donations and those who for some deplorable reason wanted to sponsor her, why you would want to slap your brand name next to someone like that is beyond me. It was beginning to show Peaches that it was abundantly clear that she was now finally genuinely in the big leagues of the content creation world, baby. And with such newfound powerful influence, Peaches knew that this was going to be the perfect time to master her talents as a professional rage baiter, who mainly survived like a parasite off of attention-driven shock value. But this time, instead of fighting elderly men with her tongue or ruining the weeks of random bystanders by shimmying through various restaurants and public spaces like a dog that had contracted tapeworms, a far more sinister idea had somehow formed in Peaches' mind. An idea that would definitely drive more traffic naturally to her social media pages, causing those within her community who actually had more than 5 functional brain cells to become morally outraged, which, wasn't new, but also differing from her prior schemes. Most importantly, it was a plan that would effortlessly feed the foaming maw of the beast that had become her addiction to backlash.
You need to check yourself on some love.
The next of Peaches' many memorable controversies would occur across the time frame of 2019 through 2020, with Peaches diligently formulating a series of various plans designed to harass, stalk, and threaten multiple other influencers, all of whom, if you were curious, were minors at the time, believing, and unfortunately believing correctly, that she could begin to further maximize her reach and, by extension, her popularity across social media if she began to become somewhat of, like a boogeyman of sorts within the communities of various creators such as Sky Jackson, Malo Trevejo, and Charli D'Amelio, with Charli being the youngest of this unfortunate trio at only 15 years of age when Peaches had decided to lay her sights on her. How exciting!
Charli D'Amelio, I want to see you. If you sit back, one thing about fan bases, if you sit back and you see them picking on somebody, they're going to keep doing it because you're not saying anything. And Charli D'Amelio's fans bully every influencer who's not Charli. And this is why Charli needs to be. She needs to be grown-ass man till she can't take it no more.
How you doing, handsome? Oh, what am I drinking you didn't ask? It's peach tea. That was really bad. It's actually terrible for me to make a joke like that, given how severe this next section of our subject matter is going to be. Then again, this whole thing has been horrible. It's been a big nasty taste in my mouth. It makes me sad to go outside and realize I live in the same world as these people. But what can you really do? Now, I have tried to find some sort of definitive motive for what we are about to discuss. Yet despite my best efforts, I am left empty-handed, aside from, well, yes, the obvious, but I mean more so specifically, why these individuals in particular. Taking a step back to 2019 briefly, Peach's attention would somehow become fixated on the harassment of a former Disney star known as Sky Jackson, who had gained her initial rise to fame from her role as a character known as Zuri Ross on the Disney show Jessie via their Instagram page. Now, this occurrence is probably one of the least documented cases of Peaches tormenting yet another individual so openly, as this highlight only seemed to be captured in real time by viewers. It's kind of like if you see a UFO. You don't know why it's there, but you just know that it's there. But for one reason or another, Peaches had somehow managed to make a guest appearance on one of, at the time, 17-year-old Sky Jackson's Instagram live streams. Here, Peaches couldn't be bothered to show her face, but chose instead to casually, how do I describe this to you creatively? Reveal themselves to Sky and her audience for all of about 10 seconds before promptly being kicked by moderators from the stream. What is so incredibly unhinged about this specific instance from Peaches, you know, aside from the obvious immoral nature of Peaches willingly exposing themselves to a minor unprompted, is that this live stream of Sky's had a few thousand viewers actively watching this entire interaction go down. Given that Sky is a former Disney Channel actress, there is an incredibly strong possibility that a sizable portion of the viewers present were fans of Sky's acting and also were likely predominantly minors who looked up to her, if I had to imagine from my first impression. Granted, of course, that's not confirmed. I can't verify who all was in the audience. I'm sure there was probably a healthy mix of geriatric men and divorced fathers strewn about, you know. But I'd probably bet like a left kidney. Heck, we can even throw a spleen in there, feeling a little lucky today that there was most likely children present within this live stream. Meaning not only did Peaches almost undoubtedly as well as blatantly commit indecent exposure on Instagram against one minor, somehow avoiding an immediate account termination as well, by the way, but who actually knows how many people in total, let alone minor viewers, Peaches willfully subjected not safe for work homebrewed material, all for the sake of becoming yet another instance of water cooler conversation amongst the communities of both Instagram and TikTok. I also don't know how that just doesn't get you like outright arrested, I guess, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. Though apparently tormenting one young influencer wasn't enough to satisfy Miss Johnson, as only a few months after this incident with Sky Jackson occurred. In February of 2020, Peaches would once more set her sights on yet another target for, once again, reasons unknown as to why she specifically decided to single out this individual. Only 17 years old at the time of this nightmarish incident, online influencer and renowned musician Malu Trevejo, who admittedly I am personally unfamiliar with their work, found herself the unlucky recipient of the "oh my god, Peaches is literally standing outside of my house at 3 in the morning" award that nobody really wants to receive. On February 25th, 2020, an Instagram account by the handle The Shade Room Teens would reveal a since deleted Instagram post from Peaches' account, where only a few days prior, Peaches had casually thrown her Ender Pearl onto the front lawn of Malu Trevejo's house like an honest-to-God cryptid. That's not okay. You can't do that, man. You can't just be showing up on people's lawns, dog. Found in the description of this legitimately eerie photo of Peaches was a caption that was equally unhinged in nature, which simply read, "I'm in front of Malu Trevejo's house. I love you so much." Given that in this photo all the lights appear to be out at the house she's standing in front of, as well as the adjacent neighbors' homes, I want to take a shot in the dark here and say that Peaches most likely would have known going earlier in the night would have ran a greater potential risk of her being spotted by Malu or perhaps anyone else in the housing community for that matter. So there is the very real chance, if I had to speculate, that Peaches decided to emerge on the front lawn of this house in the extremely early hours of the morning. Like, we're probably talking 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. if I had to estimate based upon, well, nothing aside from the lights, really. But you know, I mean, if I was hypothetically going to stalk someone, I mean, that's when I would do it. That's when it would make the most sense. Not saying I condone it, or am speaking from any personal experience. Just, you know, there's a method to the madness is all. As someone who has had the glorious misfortune of having a stalker in the past, though of course you don't have to really experience having a stalker to know that someone posting upside your house is kind of a genuinely terrifying experience. This post of Peaches viscerally, what is the word I'm trying to say here? Viscerally, there we go, unsettles me, and brings me back to my ye old youth of when I was 19 going on 20 years old. God, I love having to take my litany of multivitamins just so I have a little bit of energy past 1 p.m. Isn't it amazing? When someone would regularly show up to my apartment trying to find me like gold on a treasure map, threatening to end me if they did, and they were quite colorful about it too. There was talks of gasoline and chairs and all kinds of fun stuff. I don't know, man, the dude was like severely detached from reality. And the most haunting occurrence that sticks with me to this day was finding 12 missed video calls from an unknown account in my requests on Instagram, followed by a 10-minute time lapse of the apartment literally like adjacent to me. Get wrecked, bozo. With this dude taunting me to come outside. So naturally, when I see Peaches standing outside of this person's house like a cryptid, like, you know, the OG like Slender Man photo that like shook every person in middle school to their core, myself included, when they thought that that was like a real thing. And it's like, oh look, if you look in the background, you can see him with his tendrils. Woo! That's literally like the same energy. is this photo. So long-winded explanation TLDR. This photo of Peaches absolutely makes my skin crawl. Upon Molly Trevejo learning a few hours later of Peaches' QuickTime event in her front lawn, as users had been reaching out to her directly and adding her under Peaches' post, as a means to alert her of this genuinely insane behavior that was occurring right outside her bedroom only a few feet away, Molly would take to their Instagram story in 2 separate responses, where she would assert rightfully that her home was not some kind of museum, and that people needed to learn the concept of respecting someone's privacy. Which honestly, if it was me in this situation, I don't know if I would exactly be as collected and brief with my choice of words given the scenario. After receiving what I can only imagine was the desired backlash they were looking for, yippee. Peaches, like the malevolent force upon social media that they are, would in the following days after Malu's public responses, appear like a digital entity in the comments of one of Malu Trevejo's live streams, and would spam in her live chat an absolutely shudder-inducing series of comments that simply read, "I'll be at your house again soon. I'm coming for you, Malu." Peaches would copy, paste, and send this message repetitiously in Malu's chat in a successful attempt for the threat to be noticed, which took literally all of about 5 seconds before Malu recognized the infamous username lovelypeaches100 and would, without hesitation, pin one of these psychotic comments of Peaches to the top of her stream before responding, having no threshold of tolerance for intimidation, which honestly, forgive my Zoomer lingo here, but kind of based. Malu decided right then and there to actually confront Peaches by inviting her onto the current livestream. While I absolutely commend Malu for standing up for themselves, as we previously discussed in the instance of Peaches' harassment directed towards the actress Sky Jackson, Peaches was more than eager to provide some unique perspectives about herself to Malu and her audience. There's gonna be a lot of lip service, just wasn't gonna be a very verbal thing if you catch my drift. Immediately upon Malu demanding that Peaches is never to return to her home again, without warning, Peaches would once more expose herself to Malu and her viewers, which sadly Malu had no true way of knowing that this would happen, as if you didn't know Peaches all that well back then or were unaware of what she was truly capable of, I doubt such a cautionary approach regarding such a potential depravity would be on the forefront of any normal person's mind. Yeah, to say the least, Peaches was no average person, and instead was more akin to a virus, or perhaps, if you prefer, an aggressive form of cancer, bringing misery and disgust wherever she migrated to online. The exact aftermath of this event is, admittedly to the best of my knowledge, unknown, given as stated prior how a lot of this information is selectively archived online across varying different forums. However, one certainty is that, yet again, somehow, despite her exposing herself in an unsolicited fashion to thousands of unsuspecting livestream viewers twice now, neither Peaches' TikTok nor Instagram would be subjected to rightful suspension and or termination. Honestly, a suspension would have just been a pathetic slap on the wrist, but it still would have been more than nothing, I suppose. And Miss Lovely would continue on about their life and online career like it was any other Tuesday. But it was at least until 4 months later in June of 2020, when Peaches would wake up one beautiful morning with a silly little idea. Oh, it wasn't gonna be anything outrageously insane, you know. Just a simple little fun epic prank, I suppose. She would just begin to start openly making heinous, diabolical threats before her audience directed at TikTok's second largest creator, Charli D'Amelio. This was honestly probably the stupidest thing that Peaches could have ever done. Literally the literally the story of Icarus here. Just if instead of flying close to the sun with wax and wings, Peaches was using rage bait to soar sky high, baby. What an absolute idiot. Not to say that all the other instances weren't bad, it's just, oh man, it's like a chihuahua fighting an actual Cerberus, dude. It's not gonna end well, man. If you were curious, by the way, as of the time of this recording in 2026, Charli is currently resting at an incomprehensible 158.2 million followers, which is, for reference, over 1/3 of the entire population of the United States, give or take. If I'm, remembering that correctly, it's been a moment. I think it goes without really needing to say that Charli D'Amelio is genuinely one of the few actual faces of TikTok. And if Peaches was going to attempt to chase that high of garnering more eyes to her account than ever before by false flagging a controversy with a metaphorical TikTok Goliath, then there would be nowhere Peaches could realistically hide when Charli's audience would inevitably catch on. Which was exactly what Peaches was intending. Only I don't think she realized just how close she was flying to the sun here with this little scheme of hers. As stated previously, in June of 2020, Peaches would suddenly emerge on her Instagram page with 2 incredibly vicious rants directed towards Charli D'Amelio. In these vitriolic posts of hers, Peaches would aggressively ramble on about how she truly believed that Charli D'Amelio deserved to be a victim of SA.
Charli D'Amelio, I want to see you. If you sit back, one thing about fan bases, if you sit back and you see them picking on somebody, they're going to keep doing it because you're not saying anything. And Charli D'Amelio's fans bully every influencer who's not Charli. And this is why Charli needs to be. She needs to be a grown-ass man till she can't take it no more.
I know that I'm reading from a script here. Ooh, what a surprising fourth wall break. But I do feel the need to emphasize how deplorable these rants were, as Peaches was not shy in sharing in graphic detail every single little aspect of her sickening ideation here. I really wish there was a way that I could just explain what it is she says here. So there's this music video, right? It's called Boss Ass Female Dog. And they say that word over and over and over, like 90 times or something. But there's the clean version. So it sounds kind of something like this. So if I were to actually play this clip for you, it would literally be a one-to-one creation of that. Perhaps my reluctance here isn't the most enticing for storytelling purposes, but it simply is just so unnecessarily cruel. Peaches literally talks about wanting these horrifying actions to occur to Charli to the point where they nearly pass away. And that's like the least graphic way I can describe it to you. Also, completely slipped my mind here to make note of this to you. So let me state that for the record, Charli was, at the time, only 15 years old when these threats were being made against her so brazenly out in the open online. Ms. Lovely's reasoning for this immense vitriol was so outrageously detached from reality as well. Not that there could ever be some form of rationale or justification for this level of deranged desire, but it is far worse than whatever it is you're probably thinking. You see, based upon what I could gather, Peaches, I believe, had at the time been, for some unknown reason, receiving quite a bit of hate and backlash directed at her by users who also happen to be fans of Charli D'Amelio. But what I suppose Peaches most likely failed to realize is how, with Charli being such a renowned creator globally, there was bound to be some level of coincidental crossover with those attempting to call out Peaches for their actions, in which she was constantly being failed to be held accountable for, with those who followed Miss D'Amelio, leading me to theorize that perhaps Peaches may have been checking the follower list of those attacking her online, only for her to discover what she believed to be a consistent pattern of users who followed Charli's account, as well as her own, and figured that this must have been a campaign launched against her by Charli's fanbase specifically. Yet I have never come across any video made by Charli that suggested she had any knowledge or awareness of who Lovely Peaches even was before this outwardly condemnation and the most disgusting descriptions imaginable were set forth online by Peaches. I found a stick outside when I took a little bit of a voice break. This is gonna be fun to use. Yet this didn't stop Peaches from taking to her Instagram to openly accuse Charli of being intentionally negligent and holding her audience accountable for what only a portion of her community actually does. Which again is just a disturbingly detached stance to hold. Because if you want to do a little bit of quick maths, skidda boom boom, boom, quick maths. Charli's account and following is comprised of a community that is marginally over 2 times the population of the United Kingdom. And again, she was, literally 15 at the time. And because of Charli's inability to put on her best Kim Jong-un impersonation and rule with an iron fist, moderating her viewers' every waking action, that was to Peaches in their little mind more than a justifiable reason, again, in her belief, for Charli to be a victim of SA, which is just insane. Computer, I cast mental deterioration. Woo.
And Charli D'Amelio's fans bully every influencer who's not Charli. And this is why Charli needs to be till she can't take it no more.
Preceding this rant of hers, Peaches would then in the following days host a live stream on, I'm unsure if it's TikTok or her Instagram, so forgive me for that, where she cheerfully claimed that she had allegedly hired someone to kidnap Charli D'Amelio as a means to carry out her prior stated sickening ideations against the young influencer.
Did you get the pictures of the girls?
Hell yeah, I love it.
He go out of Charli. If y'all know where Charli is located, leave her location in the comments below because I paid this grown-ass man to...
Yeah, I'm not giving this psychopath the satisfaction. And then, only a day or so later, Charli herself would actually host a live stream on her TikTok, which would of course naturally pop up on Peaches' radar as they were closely following their account, gauging a reaction out of Charli during this time, with Peaches then seizing this temporary window of opportunity to spam highly not safe for work comments in all caps throughout her live chat. an action that reeked of the most pathetic and embarrassing cry for attention on Britney's end of things. While Charlie never directly addressed Peaches during this livestream, nor in any of her other content for that matter, which was, given Peaches' track record, entirely for the best, on July 4th, a lone paparazzo would approach Charlie in public on the street one night while she was heading towards her car, where he would ask her directly if she was willing to comment on the developing Lovely Peaches situation, to which Charlie, in a very polite and respectful manner, replied to the man that she did not feel comfortable commenting on such a subject, but how she was willing to answer a few other questions if the man desired.
Hey Charlie, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. What's going on between you and Lovely Peaches? Is that her name?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't really feel comfortable speaking on that right
okay,
now.
Okay,
that's okay.
That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. What have you been up to?
Me? Not
yeah.
much. I just went to dinner. Some of Dixie's hometown friends are here.
All right, that's cool, that's cool.
Yeah, that's really nice.
This response from Charlie, I would argue, clearly indicated that to some degree, she was aware of Peaches' attempts to harass and threaten her, but to what extent is never clarified further. However, looking at this, seeing only what's now available, and given that Charlie was almost certainly made privy to these direct threats against her, as well as seeing that, to say the least, Charlie had immense status on the platform, the last thing I'd imagine TikTok would want is for a PR nightmare by allowing Peaches to continually get away with what is, I'd safely argue, I feel to be actual criminal acts, even more so now that it appeared that it was starting to deeply disturb their second largest creator that brings tens of millions of dollars, if not more, in revenue to the company yearly. So while I cannot state with 100% certainty that this was the direct final nail in the coffin for Peaches' main TikTok account, lovelypeaches100, as there was yet one final controversy that was to unfold before the public eye preceding this, I would like to make note that not long after her threats against Charlie were so openly announced to the world with little care as to what the ramifications of such actions may bring, Peaches' TikTok page would abruptly be terminated from the platform only about 2 or so months later, resulting, in my opinion, the much-deserved catastrophic loss of Peaches' TikTok account that housed, as previously mentioned, a collective audience of over 1.1 million users. Before the impending, unbeknownst at the time, termination, however, towards the later half of 2020, Peaches would seemingly overnight lose interest in the idea of harassing Charlie D'Amelio further publicly, as quickly as she had engaged in her grossly misguided harassment campaign. But before viewers who had been paying a close eye to this never-ending paper trail of vile behaviors could have the time to really wrap their heads around what had just taken place between the two creators, Peaches would waste absolutely no time in returning to TikTok once more, with yet another putrid concept for maintaining their never-ending stream of online backlash, with her, much to the distress of those who were more than aware of what she was capable of, introducing another new and undeserving character into this never-ending digital nightmare. That said character being a Chihuahua West Highland Terrier mix by the name of Max. Almost immediately, highly distressing videos would begin to emerge on both a new TikTok account of Peaches, as well as in the form of additional highlights that were taken from her Instagram live streams. The disturbing actions displayed in this new content avenue of hers would then naturally be clipped and shared across social media and lolcow forums alike, in which Peaches could be seen joyously, lifting her dog up by its neck and spinning him around rapidly, as well as both kicking and punching him, while also bragging to viewers that she willingly deprives Max of both food and water for days, as if that was like a weird flex or something to be proud of for some reason, taking this level of insanity even further than previously thought imaginable. In these live streams, Peaches had, on at least one documented occasion, gone so far as to openly and disturbingly committing highly violating acts by placing her mouth upon him in a incredibly disturbing manner. So I need to make a little bit of a correction here. This wasn't actually Peaches' dog. Well, it might have been. I don't know how many dogs she's had in the past. I wasn't able to get a confirmed number on that. But this wasn't Max. This was actually a literal puppy. I was misinformed. So it wasn't Max, but she did this indeed to a puppy on a live stream. How are we gonna support people who essay puppies, bro? Okay, right on. Society, I suppose. All done in pursuit, as would later be described to police upon her eventual arrest, of views, money, and followers.
What would people say about...
That's not what throw out the window.
Why would you make that up?
For followers.
But holding our horses just a little bit, before this revelation, as 2020 came to a close, further additional videos were posted where Max could be seen looking absolutely exhausted, with Peaches asking Max if he was ready to be barbitized. whatever that means, before proceeding to spray her dog in the eye with perfume, while gleefully watching as the dog attempts to paw his eyes due to the now present irritation. Taking it a bit further, however, in one archive piece of media I watched involving Peaches' towards their canine companion, there was an instance that left me needing to step away from writing the script for quite a little bit. While I obviously will not be showing you what I saw within this piece of media, in the least graphically visual way I can imagine, it is a video where a dog can be seen propped up by a coat hanger in a closet. He is also not propped up by his paws nor tail, and that's like the safest way I can describe it. While throughout the years most of her other exploits were guaranteed to some degree to be glorified and cheered on by the many of her adoring fans, this is where a minority of even some of Peaches' most staunch defenders had finally decided to draw a line in the sand as to what they were willing to tolerate in the sweet name of entertainment, which the fact that it even took her behavior culminating to the point of actual animal against like a 15-pound dog at most, for some viewers to finally start disavowing Peaches' online presence, but allowed for all her other transgressions such as her not safe for work exposure to minors online. One instance I'd actually like to make note of that slipped my mind was there was as well a documented occurrence of Peaches removing their clothes at a restaurant and dancing around while minors did in fact appear to be present. No, never mind, they didn't appear, they were. Just an extra little patas note in the Peaches lore for you there. As well as the entire nightmare involving her daughter Cora and the great custody mystery is honestly beyond my small little mold-ridden brain's understanding. Whether long-term detractors and critics of her content, or if they were one of the individuals who had been snapped out of their peachy trance, awakened through the metaphorical cold water of reality being splashed on their face, revealing to them who Peaches had always been, not even really on the surface, but, you know, better late than never, I guess. While it may have taken a month or so, eventually, these handful of concerned users who were actively attempting to rescue Max from the clutches of Peaches would thankfully finally catch the break that they were looking for. On one unassuming night in the late hours of January 22nd, 2021, Peaches would go live from, at first, an undisclosed motel room, where she would parade around her room in her usual bewildering fashion, but this time with the inclusion of their dog Max as a, I suppose, prop for lack of better terms, who could be seen tied in the corner of the motel room with his leash attached to the door as a means to limit his mobility, visibly restricted to a small section on the floor, with only a singular puppy pad to support his joints. When the aforementioned series of users began to make their presence known in the stream, strewn about amongst the crowds of adoring fans that flooded the live chat constantly, condemnation against Peaches for their cruelty towards Max would gradually begin to infect the comment section, which upon their eventual recognition of such outcries, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this was something that they were most likely looking forward to, with great anticipation, only filled Peaches' heart with legitimate glee. With her focus now directed towards Max, knowing that she was truly starting to get under her viewer's skin, she would suddenly, for what was clear personal satisfaction, begin to start divulging her plans to end her dog, proclaiming how she was going to vault him out of the motel window, amongst presumably a litany of other claims that were not listed in any of the articles that would pop up like daisies preceding her impending confrontation and arrest with police. You see, at some point in the night, through methods I am personally unable to verify, a handful of users who were watching Peaches' livestream were actually able to identify where it was she was currently residing. As is often the case, if there is felt to be a good reason determined, the internet being the wacky, fun little place it is, both gracious and terrifying at the same time, the internet will almost always find a way to seek out individuals by any means necessary, acting akin to that of a bootleg Homeland Security. I'm not condoning it, I'm just telling you how the sphere manages to operate from time to time. So with a little bit of elbow grease and a bit of sleuthing around Google through photos of the various motels in Peaches' last known location, a few users felt that they, with fair certainty, had pinpointed the specific motel in which Peaches was hosting this livestream out of. That location being a Motel 6 located on Chamblee Tucker Road in North Atlanta, Georgia. After users strongly felt that Peaches' current whereabouts had been accurately discovered, the Atlanta Police Department, the DeKalb County Police, and the Department of Animal Services would then be contacted by a swath of differing users who provided authorities with a link to the active livestream, where one could witness in real time the threats and chaos Peaches was actively subjecting her dog to for the cheap entertainment of her audience. Thankfully, upon being made aware of such information, local authorities would actually take these reports seriously, which sometimes isn't always the case, with said authorities quickly dispatching what appeared to be 4 officers to the scene of this motel in an effort to retrieve Max, by putting a desperately needed stop to the torment of this 15 or so pound defenseless animal. As is revealed in a 2-minute and 41-second clip of body cam footage, obtained by the online news tabloid Business Insider. Upon the arrival of authorities from the DeKalb County Police Department, 1 officer was initially allowed willing entry into the motel room by Peaches, while 2 other officers remained outside in the open doorway, subtly blocking Peaches in, with one of the 2 officers noticeably placing his foot firmly against the door as to prevent Peaches from slamming it against them, where she too decided to get a little bit silly and retaliate against them at any point during the encounter. The first officer we see, name unknown, can be viewed kneeling down, gently petting Max, providing him with what was most likely his first real sense of affection since his untimely adoption. During this officer's interaction with the dog, Peaches can be heard casually confessing, like it was no big deal, that she had indeed informed her audience that she was back and forth on the idea of throwing her pet out of her second-story motel window. Naturally perplexed by this bizarre admission, the officer by the door then questions Peaches as to who the actual caretaker of Max was, to which Peaches then replies that she was the dog's rightful owner.
Privacy. What would people say about...
I said I'm gonna throw him out the window.
Going is not helping me.
Okay.
Whose dog is it?
Mine.
This response from Peaches is then quickly followed by another inquiry, where the officer asks her why she would ever willingly make such a heinous threat towards her own dog online, with Peaches casually attempting to reason with him, almost as if such a curiosity should have been blatantly obvious to the average well-adjusted member of society, with her answer being simply, quote, her followers. Our beloved Miss Johnson, in an attempt to quell these grave concerns regarding her pet's well-being, then informs the officers that this is all her merely exaggerating jokes on the internet, for the sole purpose of gaining attention, making further note to the officers that Max had both food and water. The report that they were following up on was all in actuality a highly unfortunate misunderstanding that had been mistakenly blown way out of proportion. You know, I mean, despite her admitting that she did threaten to throw her dog out of a literal window.
Why would you make that up?
For followers.
Rory?
For followers?
Oh, Patty.
As you can see, he's fine. Food right there.
What?
So you making threats to harm your dog for followers?
Calm down, liberal. It's called dark humor. However, it's just shockingly somehow not exactly persuaded into believing that Peaches was not a threat to the well-being of her dog. One of the officers by the door then continues to fish information out of her by then asking how long Max had been under the care of her, to which Peaches replied that to the best of her memory, she believed that it had only been a few weeks or so since his adoption, which I will say I am personally inclined to doubt Peaches' recollection here, as to the best of my cognitive memory, there had been at least a handful of her twisted interactions with Max uploaded across a handful of forums in the months prior. I'm not saying that Peaches had him for like a year or eons or anything like that, but again, I could easily be mistaken here. So feel free to correct me down below if you know whether or not this is the case. And if I'm getting this tidbit of information incorrect here, I do encourage you to correct me down below. I suppose I don't really know if it holds any exact relevance, but I am just curious to know. As the uncomfortable back-and-forth dialogue between Peaches and the officer continued, Peaches would further relay that she wasn't actually sure if she wanted to keep Max, and that her most probable course of action for when the magical spark of tormenting an innocent puppy became less glamorous was to see if her father, Michael, would consider taking Max off her hands, but any real plan past that was up in the air, left without much, if at any at all, consideration. Throughout the remainder of this body cam footage, Peaches proceeded with a few failed additional attempts to de-escalate the situation by reiterating further to the officers that, once again, the threats she made against her dog were simply a result of her offbeat sense of humor, and that the harm she carried out against Max in the weeks or months prior, again, was done for the sole reason, as stated at the beginning of this encounter, of gaining followers. Even assisting the officer in where they could locate her account, as one of the officers had mistakenly presumed that a fan page with approximately 400 or so followers had belonged to her, revealing to them that she, in reality, had over 1.1 million followers within her TikTok community alone.
I mean, is there a reason you do what you do?
The label will sign me and I can live good.
So someone will sign you and you can live good?
I mean, that makes sense. You know, I want a good life for me, my dad, and my daughter. I don't see you.
No, there's nothing wrong with that, but some of the antics you pulled on Instagram, it's
It's not normal.
No, but that's why I have so many followers.
You only had 459 followers.
I know. It's a fan page.
You have 1.1 million followers. How much money do you get from Instagram?
I have sponsorship and stuff for maybe like $1,000 a week.
$1,000 a week? Alright. And that's your account.
Unsure as to what to make of this information, as I would imagine it isn't exactly every day you get a call that leads you to confronting an actual internet cryptid. The officers, understandably puzzled by Peaches' bizarre demeanor and seemingly cheerful lax manner in the face of her current predicament, rightfully questioned if she was diagnosed with any sort of mental illnesses that she may be aware of, to which Peaches just kinda shrugged this off without much thought, and replied that she only really dealt with depression but nothing beyond that.
Have you ever been diagnosed with anything?
Hey, I need something, and there you go. It's gonna be a great moment.
Just depression.
Depression, bipolar, or anything like that?
Just depression.
Just depression?
And then anxiety.
Anxiety?
Undeterred by this line of questioning, Peaches willingly continued to elaborate to the officers once more, as she truly seemed to believe that this was a justifiable reason for tormenting her dog on a live stream, that her sole intention that night was to provide her audience with what she genuinely found to be entertainment, emphasizing as well how due to her social media presence, she was also on the side actively making thousands of dollars per week, from continually documenting herself being a menacing presence who was eager to show up with a bright smile on her face ready to ruin your day. Truly a blessing. Wait a second, what is it she says?
Click the link in my bio for a huge blessing.
Click the link in my bio for a huge blessing.
Sorry to subject you to that. It's been an earworm in my brain for like 5 days now. We all suffer together. Needless to say, the officers on scene were not exactly finding Peaches' explanations to be one of nuanced philosophical merit. None of it offered up any possible justification, not that there ever could even be one, for the deplorable actions carried out against her dog. And so thankfully, and quite honestly beyond overdue, Peaches' actions would finally be met with some actual form of legitimate repercussion. Officers had decided for the safety of Max to remove him from the premises and to place Brittany Johnson into police custody, where she would summarily be held on a $2,500 bond. According to a Facebook post that would surface online shortly after this arrest, an exact original source is unknown because the account was cropped for some reason from this screen capture. How cool and awesome, I suppose. Max would be taken by Georgia authorities to the DeKalb County Animal Services Center, locally known as Lifeline, to be provided shelter as well as veterinarian care, with Peaches willingly relinquishing ownership of Max by signing away her status as his owner to the shelter.
Well, we'll knock on your door. Animal control. We'll be here to talk to you.
While it wasn't a perfect forever home, at last, at least for Max, there was to a degree some kind of justice, even if but a small amount, that had been metered out onto Peaches after what was a needlessly drawn-out nightmare of both harassment and abuse, carried out against not only her own dog that lived in constant fear every day he was under the care of Peaches, but as well against Sky, Malu, and Charlie D'Amelio, as well as most dishearteningly, her own daughter Cora, who had just so callously been abandoned by Peaches in her childish pursuit to play the role of an absolutely mentally depraved clown for the sickening amusement of the surrounding circus they called a community, that found her pathetic idea of content to somehow be enjoyable. However, frustratingly enough, as the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together or like kiss each other goodnight or whatever. Within just a few hours of word getting out that Peaches had been arrested on her livestream, some of the most pathetic specimens on the platform decided to formulate together like a hive mind, collectively crafting one singular brain cell to use between them, decided to band together to raise the $2,500 needed to bail Peaches out of jail. And by the following morning, Peaches was once again free, eagerly ready for a return to creating her disillusioned idea of content. However, this return to form would only last for a few days, as for whatever the reason may have been, TikTok seemingly had finally caught on to Peaches, whether that was because of threats she had made so brazenly out in the open against Charlie D'Amelio, the spreading of the news regarding her arrest pertaining to the gruesome mistreatment of her dog, or perhaps both reasons being equally mitigating factors. But whatever the case may be, Peaches would awaken one morning, ready to terrorize the internet like any other day, only to find that she was having some trouble logging into her TikTok account. A little bit peculiar, isn't it? After refreshing the app once more, with her cherished, as has been stated prior, but why not a little bit of a reminder, audience of over 1.1 million followers had been officially terminated from the app. gone forever. An act it seemed only TikTok had the decency of doing, whether it was out of genuine desire to enforce the platform's TOS, public relations, or both, which in turn, in my opinion, objectively made the site a safer place for its users that day. Honestly, with all the glaring flaws that the platform has, I genuinely do commend TikTok for actually not being afraid to, in effect, remove someone like Peaches from their platform, no matter the size of her following. There are countless other websites that casually allow some of its most openly heinous creators the ability to casually violate TOS without any form of ramification due to that creator earning the website large sums of revenue and/or facing public backlash from those said creators' audiences. It is an unfair system that a lot of times does not hold established creators across differing social media platforms to an equal standard as those who are still gaining their footing. It kind of feels like a genuine digital Wild West, if you will, where the rules only apply when you're forced to fend for yourself. So again, I need to reiterate, perhaps I'm being blissfully optimistic for their reasoning here, but in my personal opinion, I want to highlight that that is a genuine W. Is that a gang sign? Genuine W on TikTok's part for actually doing what I believe to be the right thing and protecting its users from Lovely Peaches' onslaught of harassment and targeted rage bait. It's not a capital W though, it's a small baby W, because it did take them years and presumably Peaches targeting one of their largest creators and making them a wee bit uncomfortable for them to finally be like, okay, enough is enough. But still, we take our wins where we can get them sometimes. Now, well, truthfully, I would love to indulge you and I in a delightful delusion where ignorance is bliss. This termination of Peaches' account from TikTok's side of things would unfortunately still only be the destruction of one metaphorical pillar, upholstering a highly resilient support system. Despite this seemingly initial catastrophic loss for Peaches, she would still on the sidelines retain her channel, as well as her current Instagram, with her alongside as well creating 2 new additional Snapchat accounts, one public and the other private to those who wanted to shill out the precious doubloons to see exclusive Peaches content. If this is you, I want to look you in the eye and just have a bit of a heart-to-heart when I tell you this, that there is help out there and this doesn't have to be the way you go in life, my friend. You can still come back. Well, time for a fried chicken break. Wonder, take it away.
A wee bit of an editor's note here.
I will say that I did go back and learn that sometime after the termination of Peaches' TikTok page, her former main Instagram was seemingly also, for unspecified reasons, terminated from the platform, which resulted in her creating what is now her current day Instagram. As of the time of this recording, by the way, if you were just a little bit curious, this Instagram account, Lovely Peaches Pop Singer 100, presently sits at over 336,000 followers, which is just like that is just absurd. So I wanted to add that little bit of information and to clarify that Peaches actually ended up losing 2 social media platforms, yet would still in the end, despite such a severe setback, would come back seemingly stronger than ever, which is fairly disturbing in all honesty. As for the side of thing regarding Peaches' music career, well, she was still also continuing to thrive in her own corner of the industry, releasing a certified hood classic, like her singles Walkin' Like a Boss and He Go Crazy, as well as shortly thereafter debuting her prior mentioned viral slam dunk, Love Is a Waste of Time, that absolutely skyrocketed Peaches into a whole new world of popularity. And a little reminder, as I believe we previously discussed this, but this song ended up receiving in its lifetime over 16.5 million streams on Spotify alone. Lord have mercy. Despite her continual success, however, buried underneath the surface in comparison to the crowds of adoring fans who worshipped her every move online and viewed her as some sort of kind of chaotic energy queen, there was beginning to emerge a subtle rise in public outcry, with said such controversies now starting to appear on the radars of various commentary channels across social media, who would then in turn release their own coverages regarding Peaches' timeline of misdeeds, as a means to raise awareness, which subsequently caused millions of new viewers who had never even heard of Peaches before to be made privy to the countless nightmarish behaviors that she willingly inflicted onto countless other individuals for her own entertainment, such as, for example, her own abandoned daughter, while masquerading like a teenager running around in the room with one of those little plastic microphones that kind of sounds like the "let's go gambling" guy.
Let's go gambling!
Portraying themselves as a wannabe pop star. However, reality is oftentimes, as we know, incredibly disappointing. And so even with a frequent stream of coverages documenting Peaches like a feral animal throughout the years, any critics and detractors of both Peaches and her community were up against, well, realistically impossible odds. The scale of those who absolutely despised Peaches versus those who thought she was an absolute iconic diva were simply far too unbalanced, it appeared. And so when we consider how Peaches has never once since their debut to the internet shied away from these aspects of her character publicly, there were an unknown in terms of approximation, yet still sizable nevertheless fans of Peaches, who were aware of her nightmare-inducing behaviors. Might I remind you of Peaches posting up outside of a teenager's yard at 3 in the morning, and simply just did not care at all. There is a way, and it's like a method to all the fun madness, in which a creator sort of becomes immune to cancellation. But with Peaches specifically, it actually gets a little bit more interesting, because Peaches is an individual who falls into lolcow status territory. And so a lolcow's presence online is typically kept alive by two fundamental factors. One, you have the prior dedicated community, and two, you have a group of people who feel as if they have their own little personal front row seat to mental turmoil, and almost like such lolcows are animals in some sort of online live stream that you can just throw your money at to keep the show going. Where this baseline unwritten mutual understanding between both the creator and their audience devolves into what is oftentimes described online as lolcow status territory, is when the sheer level of depravity exhibited by a creator in question is kept alive, more times than not via financial means, by their audience as a way to keep the good times rolling, for lack of a better term. A few creators that come to mind are Boogie2988, Wings of Redemption, and Darkside Phil. But to add a little bit of a further elaboration here, so Keemstar hosts this show called lolcow Live, and they have Boogie and Wings of Redemption on there, not because they're characters of interest that merit any sort of, creative value in my personal opinion, but more so because everyone likes to point and laugh at them and throw tomatoes. Or I suppose not real tomatoes, online tomatoes, digital tomato, look at that. Essentially their entire careers can be best summarized to whenever you go to a fair and there's that one game where there's the dude who's like being chilling and the what is it, the dunk tank, yeah, the dunk tank, there we go, and you just keep throwing the ball at the dunk tank because you want to see the guy fall into the water because it equals ha ha hee hee. That's essentially what these guys' careers equate to. It's probably like the worst level of existence you can have as a creator. Tapping out and saying, you know what, this isn't for me anymore is like infinitely more respectable than whatever it is these two do. Well, I went to try to fix my TV and tripped on one of the power cords, so that's so awesome. Now my TV is just completely shattered, which is hype. So I'm gonna take a hammer and see if I can make it look really cool since I have to buy a new one.
Female, I'm back from destroying my TV.
This month, I'm gonna keep it a buck on a stack, has really been very lame. I will not lie. It's nothing that some bunny ears, having good friends, and a sticker with a little party hat can't fix. Big 2 thumbs up for living. It's my fault, I should have been more careful, but let's continue. Peaches, however, has a nearly perfect insurance policy against cancellation compared to some of the other more notoriously noteworthy creators we just mentioned. There's just something so uniquely different about her. Isn't she something? She has both an audience that genuinely does both love and appreciate her, whether that be out of parasocial delusion or unintentional ignorance to the great severity of her controversies. And she also cultivates users who have both the inclination and purchasing power to keep Miss Johnson afloat as a means to continually allow the fun to proceed for years on end. It culminates in a uniquely perplexing storm caused by Peaches just honestly being herself, refusing to change for others by no means. A trait that, in most circumstances, is usually viewed as admirable, but in our little particular case study here today, it's really just more pathetic and disturbing if anything. So to summarize a long-winded explanation, Peaches was pretty much untouchable. By 2022, for the most part, Peaches had, I will admit, noticeably begun to tone down the degree of her outwardly bizarre antics in comparison to how she was moving prior to her arrest in 2021 and alleged subsequent termination of her original TikTok and Instagram accounts, a trend that has, for the most part, remained rather consistent for the last 4 years, more or less.
Now let's you and I not be a little bit naive here.
As I'm not saying that Peaches was visited by 3 ghosts in their sleep and decided to change their ways, not by any stretch of the imagination. Deep down, that's the same old Peaches we've come to know and love? Question mark? Desperate to do anything for a mere breadcrumb of attention, she just wasn't participating openly in activities like eating her own anymore or tying dogs up in her closet. So I suppose when the bar is in literal hell, anything is an improvement. It's not really saying much, like, oh, congratulations, Peaches. Muy bien, Peaches. You stopped committing acts of animal cruelty. Bravo, bravo.
Yippee!
Sorry about that. Peaches would also continue releasing music on a semi-regular basis with a healthy side hobby of mentally scarring bystanders across various food establishments with her twerkathons, acting like she got boogie bombed at Arby's. like this is beyond her control. I just know that with how Peaches adamantly believes that showering is a conspiracy made by Big Water to sell more water, that when she has these sessions, these Zumba classes, I guess, and these fast food establishments, that it probably just smells absolutely abysmal. Kind of like if the Flood from Halo had their very own Febreze scent.
Burning and itching, burning and itching. Itching and burning, itching and burning.
What is it? More brutes?
Worse.
Alongside volunteering to keep the elderly company, I guess you could say. Peaches now had all the time in the world to continue her creator journey after losing custody of her daughter Cora. Her schedule for some good old-fashioned tomfoolery had just cleared, and she certainly didn't have to worry any longer, wake up in a cold sweats from the sheer thought of having to be, dare I say, a responsible mother.
You go, queen.
People listen to that and think I'm wrong, but I shouldn't have to sit down watching another human being all day. That's just being real. Do you want somebody sitting down watching you all day? You probably do, but I ain't the type of person that's gonna sit down and babysit another human being.
Yes, that energy.
Also, seeing as Peaches had willingly surrendered her dog Max to the DeKalb County Animal Services, with her thankfully on the surface displaying little interest in ever purchasing another living being, thank God for that at least, as a means to exploit them for both revenue and followers. In 2022, Peaches would grow to become a highly avid K-pop stan, sending her down her, well, K-pop era that is still ongoing to this day. After when in the months prior to a Blackpink concert that was to be held in Atlanta, Georgia on November 3rd, 2022, Peaches had been posting a series of meltdowns regarding the entry price of tickets for said concert.
Blackpink! I love you, Blackpink! Please! Please! Please bring down the prices on tickets! Please!
But after a little bit of crying online, Peaches was then able to garner enough funds to eventually purchase a ticket for the upcoming event. Why we're even making note of this to add to our lovely Peaches mythos is that this was actually a rather unique moment in Peaches' online career, as during this concert, Peaches would actually get recognized by Blackpink while in attendance, which, of course, introduced by proxy a new, what's a fun word? Gaggle. I like the word gaggle. A new gaggle of fans who had no idea who she was, or were unaware of her rather notorious history, to begin flooding across her various social media pages in droves, which, of course, only further emboldened Peaches into realizing that they never needed to change who they were to be successful.
I love you, Jizu! The pink hoodie with the heart.
Oh my God! You noticed me! You noticed me! I love you!
Day of my life. Jizu talks to me. I love her so much. Jizu, thank you. You have no idea what you've done for me. She pointed at me and she said, the girl in the pink hoodie.
Beyond this incident at the Blackpink concert, in terms of any notable appearances that garnered her further exposure online, there was one more semi-mainstream emergence of Peaches, and that, my friend, was the litigious seafood incident. Yeah, it sounds a little bit wacky when you describe it like that, but that's kind of because it is. If I were to tell you that Peaches sued someone because they got scammed in a Club Penguin chat room over $2,000 worth of crawfish, would you believe me? I don't think you would. But I promise you, this is a thing that happened. We truly live in a society, don't we? That calls for another sticker. Is it just how f***ing stupid that is? I like this guy. He's got stars in his eyes. Look at him. All right. There we go. Happiness. It's free. 2024 would begin as yet another rather unassuming year for Peaches, but unexpectedly, on April 17th of that year, our lovely Peaches would make an appearance on a TV court show based in Chicago, Illinois, called Judge Mathis, which had been uploaded to the Judge Mathis channel, where she was attempting to sue the owner of a seafood restaurant whom she had met on Club Penguin over a down payment she made for over $2,000 worth of boiled crawfish, which Peaches, invariably, had assumed would be enough crawfish to last her throughout the entirety of the COVID pandemic. Which I don't know how Peaches would have estimated how long that would have been, seeing as nobody knew. Perhaps she is a prophet, but that's beyond me. It was Peaches' strongly held belief, the one that ended in litigation against her dear Club Penguin companion, was that she felt she had not received enough crawfish comparable to her expected desired amount of sea bugs. Because she didn't get any of them. What's actually interesting is that Peaches would go on to win this civil suit because the defendant couldn't actually recall the exact amount of product that $2,000 worth of crawfish would shake out to. You see, the defendant had at that time recently acquired their parents' seafood distribution business, and after allegedly discussing with various suppliers about obtaining such a large quantity of crawfish, those suppliers then informed him that they were unable to provide what he had already taken money from Peaches to purchase, which resulted in the defendant attempting to enact his made-up company policy that they can only do exchanges and not provide refunds. And after hearing both sides, the judge awarded Peaches a hard-earned victory and required for the defendant to refund Peaches the $2,000 in restitution for an order of crawfish that had remained unfulfilled for over a year by that point.
This happened over a year ago, actually.
2,000 is your judgment. Judgment for the plaintiff. Good luck to you. I'm going to look at that site.
A unique insight that was provided throughout this lawsuit, however, was that the defendant, despite the rather silly goose situation he found himself in, actually had a degree of rather positive comments directed towards Peaches as a person at the beginning of this hearing, describing her stark contrast in person to be a night and day difference to that of her infamous online persona, citing that allegedly when you meet Peaches one-on-one in the real world, that she is both incredibly soft-spoken and well-mannered, before re-establishing that when it comes to who she portrays herself to be online, well, Peaches has a rather exuberant side to her.
We met in the Club Penguin group chat, and she is wild. She'll go door to door to these influencers and just hang out with them, just like interrupt whatever they're doing, finds out their artist, whatever, like, hey, what's up? And they're like, oh, and then let her in because they know who she is.
I don't mean to degrade your ears by interrupting with the bad microphone, but what is bro yapping about? They do not let her in. Malu Trevejo threatened gun violence.
It's so funny how she's like, I'm coming to your home. Say less, bitch. I'm defending myself. I ain't going to jail.
What are you yapping about, brother?
When I met her, she is very polite, calm, reserved, and then you go online and she's like screaming like a child over God knows what. I don't even know. Like everything that she does is just insane.
Something I thought was incredibly moving as well here is that this guy really owned up to being in the wrong and even invited Peaches back into the Club Penguin server after this whole ordeal had wrapped up. How moving.
You know, if you ever want to come back to the group chat, you can. I'm not mad at you, because I guess I was the one in the wrong, it seems like.
You remember that time Peaches abandoned their daughter and got the cops called on them for threatening to throw their dog out of a motel window? But at least she's back in the good graces of Club Penguin, baby. Grown woman who can vote, by the way. Now, if you were thinking it, I'm gonna stop you right there, because any form of possible misguided second guessing in regards to the overall complexities of Peach's character is immediately extinguished when we are splashed with a metaphorical cold water of reality that is the following highly laughable in not a humorous sense detached hypocrisy displayed by Peaches during the post-verdict portion of this Judge Mathis episode, when Peaches is allowed to share a few of her colorful thoughts directed towards the defendant. She tells him that she finds what he did to be incredibly greedy, unloyal, and how she is simply just disgusted by his actions.
Wade, I think what you did was very greedy, disrespectful, unloyal, and I'm just disgusted.
Which, okay, fair. The defendant was found to be in the wrong, which they even admitted to being as such, which is, you know, pretty nice. Accountability is cool and whatnot.
Because I guess I was the one in the wrong, it seems like.
But, I'm sorry. Actually, wait a second. No, I'm not. Why am I saying that? I don't think someone who attempts to traffic their own daughter online to the highest bidder in a live stream, who physically harmed and SA'd their own dog, and who also made a 15-year-old girl feel potentially fearful for their own safety and well-being after making threats in her comment sections, alongside joyfully proclaiming how they allegedly hired someone to kidnap them. Also, it's completely slipping my mind, the two other instances with Sky Jackson and Malu Trevejo. You know, it is a little bit bizarre to tag yourself on Instagram outside of someone's literal home. A mother, mind you, who had lost custody of her daughter due to her own reckless lifestyle and threats of harm directed at her, who at one point, I suppose, was too worried about getting scammed on Club Penguin with a bunch of strangers instead of acting like a real mother, will ever truly be in any position to cast any form of judgment onto one's character, to the point where they feel they actually have the right to be disgusted by someone's inability to exchange $2,000 for a metric ton of crawfish. Holy God, is the concept of looking in a mirror for more than 5 seconds just incomprehensible for the dear Brittany Johnson?
Wade, I think what you did was very greedy.
Charlie D'Amelio, I want to see you.
Disrespectful. The next time I go to her house, I'm going with a bat. Unloyal. When I gave birth to Queer Miracle, I automatically knew that she was a piece of shit, and I'm just disgusted.
I guess, man. Whatever. This just means it's time for us to play the ukulele of teleportation that'll take us to present day, present time. I almost forgot my water. Welcome to the future, lads. I want to say sorry for the lack of any sort of visual setup aside from my face. I am so very tired. I am currently trying to squeeze this video out in between a deadline of this Wednesday. So if it worked, hello. And there was delays because my computer randomly decided to corrupt, and so that cost me like 2 days of work to figure all that fun jazz out, and my car's falling apart, and yeah, it sucks, but we ball, you know? I gotta get up and do like a 18-hour drive across the country, which is epic, but at least it'll be done, and hopefully I don't move for a long time, because I have moved every year of my life since I was 7. So anyways, so forgive me if I look like a crusty mess who just came out of sleeping from a pile of clothes on his pile of laundry in his closet, because that's exactly what I am right now. Let's continue, baby. As of current day, Peaches still remains highly active on her social media, with her main Instagram page, lovelypeaches100, now being where she primarily chooses to dwell online. However, Peaches has as well made a new side private Instagram account, where, according to my researcher who managed to actually be lucky enough to receive a approved follow request by Miss Lovely herself, Peaches uploads her riveting Mortal Kombat gameplay highlights, her love for all things K-pop related, as well as where as of the time the script is being written, she is actively lamenting the loss of her most recent ex. This power couple, for God only knows why, would break up for unknown reasons. But given everything that you and I have gone over here today, I can only really imagine what kind of new and exciting possibilities could have prevented this relationship between these two lovebirds from flourishing into something remarkably beautiful. One of life's greatest mysteries, I suppose. As for Peaches' musical career, well, the momentum for such a project has actually dwindled greatly in popularity in recent history, with her no longer creating tracks nearly as frequently as she used to, with her most recent song being My Best Friend's Ex, which was posted on her channel over a year ago, on March 20th, 2025, which debuted with a rather positive perception, yet with an accumulated 31,000 views over the duration of the last year, which when comparing apples to apples, this does drastically pale in comparison to her other more popular tracks that released only a few years back, that rest comfortably in the hundreds of thousands of streams, to well over several million in some instances. Despite such tapering off in the musical sphere, however, this still hasn't prevented Peaches in the slightest from seeking out other entrepreneuristic opportunities to help maintain her finances, as Peaches has on the side started to promote herself on a website known as Cameo. For those of you who don't know what Cameo is, it's kind of just where, like, you know, little e-celebrities and things like that, you can pay them to say funny things and words and all that jazz online.
Hi, my name is Laith Pierre, and I hear you're heading to high school. That's highly unfortunate.
There's several people who do it. Some people are reasonable with their requests. Other people want like $400 to $500. And it's just like, no, like, Sorry. It's here on Cameo where she offers services like wishing you happy birthday. I don't know why someone would give you that as a birthday gift. That sounds abysmal. You know, I'd be pretty upset. At least like a $1 card from Walmart sounds better than... I would just be mad.
Happy birthday, Giovanna. Happy birthday, Fernando. Happy birthday, Bella. I hope you catch many STDs today.
Life advice, or to provide you or a loved one with a much needed pep talk for the low price of 30 doubloons. Oh boy, how inspiring. What in God's name could Peaches possibly say that could be like, you know what, I need to turn my life around?
You can have them like 3 days a week. I can have them the other 3 days. There's 12 days in a week.
How do people actually pay for this, man? Like $30 is not no pennies in your pocket. Also love how it states in their Cameo description that your own commission from hers, if you paid, is yours to keep. Like, no way. On God, are you being serious right now? I get to keep the thing I paid for? Really? Well, only if you insist, I guess. It's like if I went to Panda Express and they told me that if I give them my money, I get to keep my food. As Rod Peaches specifically continues to share in her daily life on her Instagram account with over 336,000 followers. Because the world is just legitimately broken, I suppose. Users can unfortunately find videos of her twerking in what I assume to be her first real place of residence in ages, Cameo promotions, as well as her culinary endeavors like her delectable brick of mysterious meat that looks like the protein block straight out of the movie Snowpiercer, all of which continues to this very day to garner Peaches tens of thousands of likes and comments on each post, from dedicated fans. Who honestly looks at a mystery brick covered in mayo and goes like, woo baby, let's go, that's exciting stuff. 18,000 people, apparently that's who. Which, in my personal viewpoint of the world, just acts as a glaring reminder of how emotionally and mentally detached people truly are online. I suppose also in the real world. To be able to support someone like Peaches as both a creator and a person. Even with the loss of her massive following on TikTok, Peaches still remains with over 53.5 thousand followers on her Twitter, which is massive for Twitter standards, accompanied by her Instagram with a fan base of over, as previously stated, constantly 33,000 Peaches enthusiasts. Aside from a potential explanation for this admiration that I will expand upon here in a moment, it leaves me with only one question posed in my mind that has been echoing in my brain throughout our analysis. That question being, are the victims simply just not interesting enough for people to actually care about holding Peaches accountable by never allowing someone with such a heinous track record to ever hold the status of a reputable online influencer ever again? Something I admittedly struggled with when it came to covering Peaches' story here for you today is that whenever I nowadays usually go into writing a script, even though this is my full-time job, of course, and I have to keep to some sort of loose concept of a schedule to keep the lights on, I still always discuss in private, not only with myself but with my researcher as well, what good and or change could arise from such coverages. But with Peaches, I constantly kept feeling like I was just lying to myself and forcing myself to have some sort of morally backed motivation for creating this analysis, which of course there are plenty of reasons to be morally outraged with her. But truthfully, and I don't ever like to have this mentality, throughout my writing and even somewhat to a degree now, perhaps I'm just not able to really see it, maybe I'm in a bad mood. I feel as if in Peaches' case here, raising awareness is rather futile, or at least it just feels that way. It's like none of what I have discussed here is some sort of unknown secret. I mean, she went after the literal second largest creator on TikTok, all the mess with her daughter and what she claimed to do to her and the selling and all that terrible jazz. And yet people saw it and just didn't care. They're just like, she be dancing in food establishments. She's silly though. She's an icon. I just don't get it, I guess. Like, I hate feeling like I'm just wasting my time or doing something that feels as if I'm just grabbing a quick and easy check simply for the fact because I can. But as I literally just touched on, I think the root of why I even feel this way is probably just due to the fact that it is so incredibly depressing how every horrific, terrible action blatantly carried out in the open by Peaches, unlike many others who have done the same and rightfully earned their place in the metaphorical internet hall of infamy. It all just seems to be information, white noise that is just digested by her audience, that is then blocked out and nullified due to how entertaining Peaches appears to be to them. Now, I know that not every single person who follows Peaches is aware of what she does. I get if people haven't seen the entire side of Peaches, how they could probably equate them to being this like iconic, she's just so quirky, she's just screaming at people in public, I guess, which is still a horrible thing to do. But I guess it's not on the same degree as, you know, animal abuse in SA, as well as threatening and showing up at the houses of minors. But I mean, that's still just like why would you do that? Why would you look at that and be like, what a freaking diva? It's just, the math ain't mathin'. And like, if you've only heard her music on Spotify, I'll give it to her. She's got a pretty good voice. So if you're just a casual Peaches follower, I can understand how some might be oblivious to such information. But that being said, there are still plenty of people in these comments and live streams where she's just going off and saying these horrible, god-awful things that are just like, that is my queen. And I just don't get it. And honestly, it inadvertently puts a spotlight on a much grander issue at play here. Because Peaches is simply just the type of person who got popular. How many other people like Peaches are out there? Maybe in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, lurking around the world in the interwebs that are just like her and this mentally depraved solely for the lust for entertainment. It's a terrifying thought to think about, because when we again think of not even just Peaches but lol cows in general, I really am not like the biggest fan of that word. It makes you think these are just the ones that got recognized, who knew how to, I guess, put themselves out there, for lack of better terms. So again, how many of these individuals truly walk amongst us, seeing actions like Peaches and instead of feeling disgust, feel a degree of relation? It's quite a boogeyman thought to think about. Which brings me to, I suppose, the answer I had been looking for throughout the time I wrote this script. What can we even do? Admittedly, trying to, bring about justice for an individual who, at the size of Peaches, it's gonna be a losing battle. Just because a battle is a losing one doesn't mean you don't fight it. Why throw in the towel? Why just give up? It's never going to be a valid option for these types of people. And even if speaking against such individuals at times feels useless, as people like this will always find some sort of way to stay relevant. You're supposed to do it because it's the right thing when done correctly. I'm not saying I've done it correctly here, that's entirely up to one's interpretation. And it also shows that where there are swaths of individuals who are just like Peaches, the more you speak out and actually say something, it also shines little metaphorical lighthouses and the abyss of the internet that shows that there are still like-minded people who condemn this kind of behavior out there. And when such people come together and find a place where they can continuously raise awareness and to an extent be a part of some sort of loose community, it can act as these sort of online safe zones where such behaviors are never tolerated. The issue can never truly go away, but it can still, with enough effort, go somewhere else at least. But alas, with that said, and my little "we can all live together" little speech there concluded. For the time being, Peaches still remains in high regard within her community, surrounded by a loving community who showers her. Showering and Peaches don't really go hand in hand. Forgive me. Who stand by her with an unyielding degree of support. Because for every new individual who is made aware of what Peaches and others like her have been able to get away with unscathed across social media for decades, is another user who is able, with the power of information and awareness, to assist in preventing such bad faith actors from ever being able to truly slither away from their past actions without facing down any form of accountability, attempting to bury in the digital depths any evidence that could suggest who they truly are behind closed doors, by never allowing the privilege of such diabolical actions to remain in secrecy ever again. As for what can be done going forward, all we can really do, in of course a respectful way, is to continue to shine a spotlight on the relentless toxicity that continues to develop in the shadows, day after day in the vast tucked away corners of the internet, as it isn't a matter of if, but rather when, the next monstrous creator hidden out there somewhere right this very moment decides to take their chance and step forward into the limelight, setting forth yet another rabbit hole of depravity that grotesquely captivates the online world for years to come. Whoa, hey there, handsome, beautiful little dime. Forgive me, I probably look very grainy right now, but I'm in the process of moving, and I spent 20 hours 2 days ago cleaning this entire house by myself, which was no bueno. And the heat is whack. And I swear to God, if I see a comment about someone hitting me with the,
"Oh, why don't you just not wear a hoodie?"
It's called sensory issues, my friend. They're not fun, but big baggy things are the only thing that make me feel like I'm not gonna crawl out of my skin. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah, you're a dime, like 2 nickels combined, which would equate to a dime. So usually, for the most part, I always stick to a pretty similar yet always slightly altered outro script. If broke, do not fix. But honestly, I kind of want to be not so formal for a moment and all that jazz, and just take some time to relax, as I don't always get some one-on-one time with you, which I suppose it's a fairly one-sided conversation, seeing as this is taking place in the past, and I am stuck inside the confines of your tiny little device. I'm not even real. Truthfully, I am so insanely tired. Not in any sort of deeper sense, just like I am just exhausted. This summer has sucked. The reason why our fun little analysis was delayed a little bit longer than it should have been is that I am moving states right now, as I just mentioned. I get the way that people do in winter during summer, which isn't an excuse. And I've just been kind of pulled in all kinds of different directions over the last 2 months. And the whole personal development of the soul thing isn't always linear, but do not mistake it, it is never a step back. The point I'm getting at is I genuinely want to thank you for making it all the way through to the end of today's video. There's no other way to describe it other than saying it helps me out tremendously. You being here, even if you're new, and being able to do this job is in part what has helped ground myself, or has helped me ground myself. I think that's the proper English there. And push through every time making these dives. Usually when I'm kind of feeling like down or don't want to get out of bed and I open my requests on, say, Instagram, and I see a message from someone saying like, hey, someone sent me one the other day where they said like, yo, I use your stuff in like a warehouse all the time and I didn't think your voice was real. I always get that, which is great, and that's like a really cool feeling. And with the support that this channel and you all have provided me, I am finally able to take a gamble and move to a city that I've been trying to move to since 2022. Admittedly, I have spent virtually the last 2 years of my life in isolation, and unfortunately in me saying that, there are some people who probably take satisfaction in such a notion. It's been rough, but I am the type of person who I would say I always stand by my own side and will always push through anything thrown my way. It's something you just have to do. Even when everything seems impossible and the outcome is just like, you have no ability to conceptualize it in your head. The idea that things can be good one day. You know, the self-help fairy tale that they're always just like, all right, kiddos, just keep on pushing through. You're gonna be okie dokie. Life gets better. It's just like, okay, but that's so vague. That doesn't really do anything for anyone. It's just like fortune cookie advice, which, you know, I can't disrespect fortune cookies because I always keep my fortune cookie tabs on my desk. I always keep them. Superstitions are fun. Your best investment is yourself. Which is true. The whole reason that I'm even discussing this with you is that I, wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be, to some degree, a part of your lives, even if it is just casually as passing background noise. You'll never know how blessed I feel that, to some extent, I didn't have to go through these last 2 years entirely alone. Yes, of course, I have my wonderful online friends who I love very much dearly. I have Robin, who has really pulled through and tried to hang out with me. And of course, cannot forget James. But yeah, you know, I've just I come home to big empty walls, and that's why this move is so incredibly important to my life. And the reason why I even have that opportunity and the freedom to do that is, yes, because I put in the work, but Also, primarily because of you guys. You've all given me something to put my focus on and a reason to try my best at things, to serve information and to entertain. We've been through a lot here on this channel, haven't we? We've moved from several apartments, had delays, setbacks, and yet, while I will probably never be some massive 1 million sub behemoth, I still, because of you guys, have this feeling of being on top of the world. Whenever I stop and I think about how incredible this community has been to me, I couldn't have ever begun to give myself a genuine second chance at a life that makes me happy. Thank you for giving me this space to not only grow as a creator, but as a human being as well, because I get to apply these lessons not only here on this channel, but in my real life, and it's a priceless gift that simply cannot be replaced. But anyways, with that said, I know you've got some other content to go browse about you, so I'll wrap things up here. If you enjoyed today's video, it would be really appreciated if you consider dropping a like, a comment sharing your thoughts, as well as tapping that subscribe button with the bell notification on, as it truly helps me grow as a channel, and quite frankly, just feels really cool and supportive. Thanks for that in advance if you do decide you want to stick around. I'm gonna do this part like a radio guy. If you'd like to help support me and what we do here on the channel, feel free to consider checking out my Patreon, which can also be found down below in the description, or becoming a channel member. Each patron gets their name featured at the end of each dive, access to updates on projects, me yapping about and posting whatever's going on here. I kind of use Patreon now as this just like place to just, I don't know, like Twitter, but not. I hate Twitter. If you'd like to follow me on other platforms to help further boost my ego, feel free to follow the links in the description to my Instagram. It's a great way to reach me and connect if you're feeling like you just want to say hey, or if you wish to show me incredibly outdated memes and internet content in general. Once more, as I'm sure you know by now, so smart. My name is Wonder, and it was super chill to have you here today. I want you to promise me that you'll take it easy. I've got some more deep dives to go make for you. The next one is of an individual that no one has ever spoken about, at least not in a publicly documented format. It's a pretty vile situation that's been occurring in the fun little chateaus of the interwebs. So, until then, you make sure to be safe. Get some sleep at a reasonable hour because Lord knows one of us needs to. And let's you and I try to do this again sometime very soon, if you're feeling up to it. You take care, my friend, and farewell. Forgive that echo, I just moved into a new living room. I'll try to mitigate it the best I can. If you're still here, I'd like to take a moment to express my gratitude to my kind-hearted supporters over on Patreon. I truly am forever grateful for your generosity. I know times are rather tough for a lot of people right now, so for you to support me in such a way with everything going on in the lives of your own, I really can't find proper words other than thank you. I'd also like to give another warm thank you to our high-tier community members such as Zednu, Living Kawasaki, as well as Ridiculous Mus, and to our highest tier members, an additional extra special thank you to Rika, Carol DeShells, Radical Buddhist, Captain Scheibrin, Hatter, Jay, Alice Beth, Goth Barbie 3000, Rose Boswell, Lucifer, and Salix. You all have my expressive gratitude. Every one of you make each and every new project possible. Thank you. Be well, stay safe, and good night.